What's the first thing women notice? Your face. That's why you got to take care of it. Simple things like getting a haircut, grooming your face, and brushing your teeth is important. But there's one thing guys miss and that women always notice. It's when a guy isn't taking care of his skin. That's why I'm so excited to have Trev as a sponsor of today's video. Trev simplifies the process of taking care of your skin. They provide you with all the products you need and nothing you don't. Seriously, I don't think some of you believe me when I tell you how much implementing a quality skincare routine will improve your confidence in all aspects of your life. I recommend you start with the level 1 system, which comes with all the basics: daily face wash, exfoliating scrub, an AM moisturizer with an SPF 20 and a PM moisturizer. But and to make it dead simple for you guys, they provide an instruction card in every box that tells you when to use each product, how much to use, and in what order. But because Trev is sponsoring this video, they're offering you an amazing deal. Just click the first link in the description and get 40% off your first skincare system and free gift. Plus, as a member, you'll get 20% off for life. By the way, one of their new gift options is a silicone body scrubber, which is a $20 value and a complete game changer. Once you use this, you'll never go back to a regular loofah ever again. So don't wait any longer. Click the first link in the description to start your skincare journey today. What's going on, everybody? How y'all doing? Welcome to Lapeef Sunday. The crew, we got Miss Brittany Gold, Allie, Dad Simone, and the Closet Baddie. Me, myself, and Lapeef JR. Glad for you guys to join this discussion today. It's one on Dale Matthew, dedicated to my children's future. Fifi, Primetime 87, Mark G, dedicated to my children's future. Get the one Lapeef membership, and also dedicated another Lapeef membership. I want to thank you for that. Fishing and Fit, everybody, welcome. Hit that like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel, and also make sure you guys click that Trev handling link. You guys get 40% off along with a free gift, and if you become a member, you get 20% off for life. Let's go ahead and get this show started, man. So I came across this video where it was feminine women versus feminist women. It was an excellent discussion. I did have some questions throughout this reaction, so I'll go ahead and get it going, and then I'll get you guys to chime in. Here we go.
With traditional gender roles?
So for me, yes, I am someone that does believe in traditional gender roles. However, I don't feel like everything has to be set in stone. But however, do I believe that a man should be the provider? Absolutely. That's something that I know that works for me, and I believe we all have choice power. So having children eventually one day, I want to be able to have the option of maybe not working, and that being okay.
Thank you.
You know, we're two genders. But I think in the past, that demarcation line between people fulfilling roles, I think that's gotten blurred. And it's been to our advantage as women, because by having that very strong delineation between this is what a man does and this is what a woman does, we have surrendered a lot of power as women. So I think it's important that we take that power back. If that means that we have to function in the world taking on somewhat of a man's role, then we do it, and we have done it. And I think by doing that, we have empowered ourselves, and because of that, we are better role models for our daughters and for young women.
All right, so that brings me to my first question. Do you agree with traditional gender roles? Do you agree with traditional gender roles? I'm going to go ahead and start with you, Ms. Closet Baddie. You're on mute, just so you know.
Oops. All right. Yes, I agree. I agree with the man, you know, definitely being the provider. I mean, if we're going to be serious, like, I kind of get that out the way and kind of let them know I don't do the 50-50 thing, you know. Yeah, so I'm all for, you know, the roles per se. I don't want to say I disagree with the feminist, though, because I feel like if you're forced into that role, yeah, you have to do it. But I'm not going to be in a relationship or in a marriage like pumping feminist like theories. Like, no, me personally, that's for singlehood. And that's just my opinion now, so.
Okay, we'll go to you, Allie. Do you believe in traditional gender roles?
Yes, I do. I always kind of have, but I think like the difference between what the lady was saying in the video is I feel like we must remember the idea of traditional gender roles is such a sensational like headline in and of itself, because traditional gender roles, like back in the day, women couldn't even get their own checking account. That's our grandparents, without a husband. I think it's totally okay for the male to be the provider in the relationship. I don't know. I've seen too much and witnessed too much to feel that women having all of the same things as men is it's just not realistic. So yeah, I agree with traditional gender roles.
All right, what about you, Brittany? Do you believe in traditional gender roles?
I believe in doing what works for the relationship because life is all about seasons, right? So you might be in a season where, as the wife, if your husband or man is in some type of transition, you might have to hold things down. You might be the breadwinner, you know what I mean? But then you might be in a season where you're having children and you can't do everything that you did prior to that. And your husband has to take more of that role. I think I'm not so hung up on traditional roles, long story short. I think it just depends on the relationship, and you have to remain dynamic through life and through relationships.
Okay. What about you, Ms. Dassimone? Do you believe in traditional gender roles?
I believe in both traditional and non-traditional. Like she said, I agree with Brittany. It just depends on the dynamic of the relationship. Um, I think that for some households, I like I feel like I'm a feminist based on the definition, not based on how society presents feminists. So I feel like if a guy decided to be a house husband or whatever, I feel like that's okay if it works for that, the family or whatever the case is. And I feel like he shouldn't, like as a feminist, it say we want to be treated equal. So I feel like he shouldn't be treated less than because he's in that role. And I feel like if a woman has to step into a certain role that a man would usually play based on, the European ideas and beliefs, then I feel like she should have the same respect as him, and she shouldn't have lower respect because she's a woman.
Can you define European beliefs?
Everything that was taught to us since slavery on down.
So, do you know what the dynamics of prior to slavery, like back in Africa before we were, rounded up? Do you know how they were set up? Are
It
you
depends
aware of how
on
they were
which
set up?
culture you're talking about. Africa was never all one thing. They usually let people do their own thing. So there were tribes that were only ran by women. And actually, if you look up their statistics, they were actually thriving better than some of the tribes that were ran by men. So that's why I said before European ideals, because in Africa, it was way more diverse when it came to relationships.
Okay. If you guys have any questions for some of the perspectives, feel free to chime in as well. I'm going to go ahead and keep this rolling. Here we go.
You say power.
Power is, in other words, we're not subservient. We, have our own earning power. We have our place in the world. We're making a contribution. We're not just being the nurturing person that sits at home raising children. We're doing much more than that.
Options and equality. That's power. I was interested to hear you talk about going back to traditional roles. I don't know which tradition you want to go back to, but I come from the women's movement from the 70s, and of course, that's almost the second iteration. The women's movement started in 1848, and we're talking about a period of time where women's lives were totally, you couldn't inherit the money. You meant that if you didn't get married, you were an old maid, and there weren't any other options. So when you go back to tradition, I don't know how far back you're going, but I do know that if we keep the roles the way that they had been in the past, there's been a lot of abuse for women. The women from the 1970s, they looked very militant. And I understand that young women of today find those kinds of feminists off-putting because they feel that they have somehow buried what they feel is their gentler nature. There's a kind of rebellion about it now, and I respect that, and I understand where it's coming from. But we, as the old feminist, the old women's movement, set the stage so that you now have the choices. And when you say you want to go back to traditional roles, I don't think you mean to go back to the time when women had no choices.
Okay. How do you define traditional roles today? Start with you, Brittany. How do you define traditional roles today?
How do you define traditional roles? So, because I don't really agree with traditional roles, it's really hard for me to define that. I think it's based on whatever is needed at that time and whatever gift or strength that person has in order to fulfill that task or need. I think that the feminist movement served a purpose, you know what I mean? And it still serves a purpose, but I think that traditional roles don't necessarily apply anymore because of where we are today in society. Women do have more rights in comparison to what they had back in the day. So I don't know if there is still a need for the feminist movement. It's all circumstantial. There are some situations where you might have to advocate for equal rights, gender equality, and all of that. But then, we also have come a very long way. So I don't get caught up in traditional roles. I mean, ideally, as a woman, we like to be feminine is an energy, right? We all have masculine and feminine energy. And I think that it's about finding that balance. Naturally, women like to be nurturing and we like to care for others and we like to be soft and we love beauty and aesthetics and gentle just being, right? Which is what feminine represents. But the masculine energy, not to go down a rabbit hole, is also needed because it's about action, right? I think that being feminist has a place whenever it's applicable. You know what I mean? I don't get caught up into traditional roles anymore. I mean, I'm not saying that I would advocate for a future spouse to be a stay-at-home dad, but maybe for a season. You know what I'm saying? It all depends on the circumstances. Got to remain dynamic.
Okay. Thank you, Brittany. That's Simone. How do you define traditional roles today? You're on mute, just so you know.
Just for, I guess, my generation, I don't really see, it's just for me, I see the roles are kind of like 50-50 now. Sometimes like 65-40, 70-30, but the women is doing something. The man isn't 100% doing anything. That's what I'm seeing as far as today. I feel like that's starting to work when you hear the younger men actually getting in tune with their emotions and speaking about like not wanting to do it all and wanting to be there with the kids sometimes and wanting to go to the other side that is not usually talked about when men talk about their roles. I think it's working for modern day society. I think it's hard for everybody to integrate it because people are judging some men who can't pay the full thing. But right now, as far as modern day, I think it's the household duties are shared amongst each other, which is when I'm seeing those couples who are actually thriving, where the household duties are shared, it seems like they're both happy. You see the dad with the kids. Sometimes you see the mom doing things or paying things and buying stuff for her husband. They seem really happy that instead of two people sharing one specific role all to themselves, it seems like it's easier, both of them sharing the load.
Okay. Allie, how do you define traditional roles today?
I do feel like it's important to point out, I feel like the old definition of traditional gender roles is very stiff. Like I said, the very surface level example of women couldn't get loans or checking accounts, that type of stuff. I don't believe in that. I feel like the modern definition of traditional gender roles are that the lady's priority in the home, her priority is to emotionally lead the household. I do believe that the lady is the second in command. Like when the men on the panel are like, Allie, welcome to the dark side. Like, what are you talking about? Like, I've always thought like this, you know? I do believe that the lady should be the second in command of the household and the man should be the leader of the household. And that doesn't come with disrespect. It comes with a heavy amount of collaboration, just like all the other ladies have said on the panel. I do believe it ebbs and flows and it's dynamic. But when we get down to the root of what is modern traditional roles, I do believe that the lady should be emotionally leading the household, meaning if, let's say you have kids in the house and things, you have a teenager, I don't know, and they're going through something, bring that up to your spouse or significant other and work through it, okay? Now, for the male's role in a traditional, gender role relationship, they're the protector and the provider. Like if an intruder comes in the house or whatnot, they're going to be the one to physically, get them out, that type of thing. I do believe in that dynamic. And like I said, it's not the same as what we thought of back in the day, because I agree with everybody else. Like when you live in a household and you're doing things, the man can clean the house too, just as much as the lady can take the car to the shop to get something fixed. I think those things really trigger people when they think, oh, they're so hardcore traditional. Like, no, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about what is the priority. The male's priority is protect and provide. The lady's priority is to emotionally lead the family and collaborate with her significant other. So that's my definition of it. So I know sometimes it can come off harsh, like, oh, Allie's so hardcore traditional. Like, no, like my existence is not traditional. So of course it's going to be a little bit different. So that's how I define it.
Okay. All right, Closet Baddie, it's on you. How do you define traditional roles today?
Again, I agree with, a lot of what Ali said, the provider, the protector. I mean, there is some flexibility, and obviously there are situations that are going to come up where, a woman will have to step, in another role because your husband, your partner is unavailable or incapable for whatever reason. So I do believe in that type of flexibility. I do also believe that a woman should contribute. Absolutely. Yeah, I believe the man should be the main source, unless, again, there's some extenuating circumstances. But I think it's extremely difficult for a woman to remain in her feminine energy if she's tasked with a lot of, masculine roles. So I feel like we really have to be careful with that, So I'm not saying it's impossible, but I'm gonna be honest, my first husband, we divorced over the whole house husband thing. It was okay for a season, but when, he got too comfortable in that season and it was never discussed, it's extremely difficult, when you want that man to lead and do things and he's not doing it and doesn't want to do it, that's real hard. So hats off to, any ladies that can deal with that long term, because I absolutely cannot,
I was in the same boat as you. The same thing happened to me after 10 years. I was like, why am I coming home you're playing the PlayStation? Like, how did this happen? Like, I filled in where I needed, but this is too long. Like,
I don't want no man who is comfortable with his wife, working overtime and breaking her back, to provide for the family that he helped make, when he is capable. You know, it's one thing if he's injured, you know, there's something going on. But if he's purely capable, I want that man to be able to step up and be like, I'm supposed to be doing this. Let me give you some kind of relief on one end or the other. So,
No,
To kind of piggyback off of what y'all.
sorry.
No, you're okay. To kind of piggyback off what I was saying, I was just thinking about that, like, based on where I'm at, I'm kind of near like the middle lower class community, and sometimes I see that women sometimes have to start off not leading, but sometimes they have more information on how to provide than some of the men in this where I'm surrounded by, and I've noticed when a man is willing to take in, once he knows what she knows, he's leading her past different expectations. And I feel like sometimes that's hard for men to accept, like, okay, she might know how to do resumes better than I do, or she might know, peep out my skill set better than I do. So I do feel like sometimes women do have to play that. I also feel like when it comes to the younger generation, from what I'm seeing, a lot of women are getting in relationships with men and expecting them, like, back to Alley point. This is what I've been trying to tell women a lot. We are spiritual soldiers. So if a man, in my head, if any person is not taking care of their kids, something they created, let alone themselves, there's something going on with them mentally. And I've noticed that emotions is connected to the psychological, and a lot of women, they're not really concerned about his mental state, I guess, because of the stress they might go through playing his role. And they don't really ask the right questions to get him, like, they so worried about who he's having sex with versus, okay, how are you feeling today? Where your mental, like, do you believe in yourself to go out there and do these things? And they're not uplifting him in the right areas for him to even get to that point. They just come in a relationship and be like, yeah, this is what I expect. And because you chose me, you should have it all together because you chose me and now you got me. And I don't think that's fair. And because our role is spiritual and emotional, a lot of women in my generation, they don't have a lot of endurance. That's the easiest thing I can say. They get in there and they be ready to get out like it's a whole bunch of options. I don't feel like a lot of women know their role and their true
Mhm.
capability.
Okay. All right, let me go ahead and continue some of this video and then we'll get into it.
Of having zero options, zero choices. Do I think that women should not vote and we should go back? No, I do not support that in any capacity. I support women having, equal rights to pay. I'm for gender equality in terms of women, making as much money as men do. Everyone's household is different. Not everyone even has a man to even rely on. And so, yeah, I think that it's fair to say, yeah, you should be making whatever money you're qualified to be making. So when I speak about traditional gender roles, I'm talking about the knowing of who's playing what role specifically. There's always a masculine and feminine energy, and I would prefer for my man to have that masculine energy. For me, as to where it stands, it solely means a man being a provider and being okay with that. I also am in an interesting space myself because I'm very feminine, but I also do work. And so what does that look like? How do I strike the balance? I know that for me, I don't want someone to tell me necessarily, no, you cannot work at all under no circumstances, but I want options.
All right, so that brings to my question: how important is gender equality? How important is gender equality? Start with you first, Ali.
The thing that just keeps ringing heavy in my head is, as much I don't think there's anything wrong with women working. First and foremost, I feel like there's a lot of talented women out there that definitely should put their skills out there and whatnot. But I feel like it's just, like I said, what I've seen, I'm knee deep in corporate America. And it's like, it's just not realistic. I've never wanted to be part of the billionaire boys club that run everything. I've seen documents that show the wage difference. It's incredible. And it's like, I don't think I'm going to see it in my lifetime. I really don't. As much as women want to say that equality, like, yes, we've made incredible progress on, like I said, the surface level things, like the checking accounts, whatever. But in the grand scheme of things, I just don't believe it's there. There is no gender equality when it comes to especially corporate America. That's why 90% of this country's wealth is to white people, and 90% of executive leadership teams are older white males. And if you become a woman on those executive leadership teams, particularly if you're a minority, it's like a target on your back. And I'd rather not. No, I'd rather play my role and play it well. I know I've said that many times. The wage gap is way too big for me to see it change in our lifetime. And then it plays into, because I believe in traditional gender roles of the women leading in the household, a lot of times the women in the work environment will have to take a leave to raise children. And I'm not knocking that whatsoever. But when that happens, it's like clockwork. Well, she's gone for a year. She's got to be missed on all these projects. She's going to not get the promotion. I'm not saying that it's not possible that women can make it there. I'm not saying that at all. But typically the women that I see that do make it up there don't look like any of us. So I'm just saying, being super real, do I believe that we should be more equal? Absolutely. Do I think it's realistic? Absolutely not. So that's kind of like, is it important? Yeah. But I also think as we raise children, we have to have these conversations. We can't create this delusion in their mind that these things aren't happening, because they are happening, so that they know how to move and be calculated and strategic with how they curate their personal and professional lives. So that's my take on it.
Okay. Closet Batty, it's on you. How important is gender equality?
Whoa. See, that's a tricky one, because this is the thing. There are some instances where, yes, we should, be right here, but there are a lot more where even if we wanted to, we can't. Like, we would never be as strong as a man. Let's just be real. We weren't born equal, so that's where it gets really hairy, because it's like, all right, so here's a being over here that has things that I don't, that has strengths that I don't. They also have weaknesses that I don't. So it's almost like, where do we cap this off? Like, where do we stop at? Because it's only so much we can be equal at, and then it's just impossible at that point. And that's exactly why there are men's sport teams and women's sport teams, because we do have those differences. So it's like, how do we find this fine line of equality while still being very realistic, based on just biology,
Okay. Mr. Simone, how important is gender equality to you?
I really was trying to sit here and figure out how I can put this into words without contradicting myself, but I feel like it's important based on how I see they're trying to condition our upcoming Black women, especially as being trickled down. Like, I see them women fighting men, and okay with it. I'm starting to see them like, and I'm just like, y'all don't even know how dangerous this is getting. I agree, there's a fine line. But when it comes to gender equality, I do believe if this woman, if it has nothing to do with physicality, like Ali was talking about the business environment, if she's qualified, I do feel like that's important for her to get paid as much as him, the guy. I think a lot of even Black men believe in that. I don't think all men think that way. That's why she said when you see the people that's up there repressing those people, it's not Black men, it's a whole bunch of old white men with old white beliefs. I think gender equality is important because I think it's starting to affect our Black men's confidence as far as in our community. I'm outside the business environment, right? I'm not talking about the business environment anymore. I'm just talking about the way we're supposed to uplift our men. We're supposed to pour into them the spiritual aspect of it, just being there to support him, his ideas and his dreams. That part missing is and him not feeling like he got to up, that's affecting our men's confidence. So I do feel like in our community, maybe that shouldn't be our focus. We should just be uplifting our men and make them believe they can do what we can do and more than we can do, even if we come in more educated than them. Just letting them know, hey, once you get this, you're going to be able to do what I can do plus more. So I need you to learn this real quick so you can take over, because I don't want to be in this position. So yeah, that's my take.
All right, Brittany, what about you? How important is gender equality?
I mean, I believe equality is a basic human right. You know, everyone should have access to the same opportunities and rights. But having worked in education before, I still, in a certain capacity, oftentimes you hear the difference between equality and equity. And right, I feel like we should put more emphasis on gender equity over gender equality, because just like what the closet baddie was saying, we're not necessarily equal to men. You know what I mean? In certain ways, like when you just think about the physical, there are certain things that men can naturally do better than we can. Doesn't mean we can't work to get there. But when you think about equity, you think about different levels of support, right? That will eventually get you to a place of equality. But I think we need to put more of an emphasis on equity over equality, if that makes any sense. Equity is the bridge that will help to create equality.
And I definitely agree with you that on there, Brittany, when you had just said that the equity and equality, I think that's what, when you hear most women talk, especially when they give examples, they're talking about equity. They're not talking about respect me the same, talk to me with the same tone, talk to me. They're just like, no, I'm doing the same job you're doing, and I'm kind of doing it better. And I've been proven to put in more hours than you. So why am I not getting paid as much as you? Why am I not being put in certain positions that will help the company versus your ego? So I definitely agree with that.
Yeah, and when you think about it, over time, because women didn't always have the same rights as men, we're further behind in some ways. Like you have some male-dominated industries, which is why you might have some scholarships for that particular industry, specifically for women, right? That's equity. Like, how can we help you who has been oppressed to get to this space and take advantage of this opportunity? So it's like you need equity, things in place to support equity in order for things to be equal, because things were not always equal. So yeah, equity over equality.
But I do see how men say it hurt the Black community, because a lot of women, when they do start taking and getting that type of recognition, they kind of, not all, I'm not saying all women, but some women do look down on our men. And when I try to convince men that, like, we're not supposed to be up here fighting these corporate giants. It's supposed to be y'all. Like, it's not supposed to be us going against these production companies and the music labels. It's supposed to be y'all. And if y'all don't handle them right, when these women do come into music, guess what they're doing? They're doing the same thing that you're doing for $1, whether you're selling out or buying out. And I think a lot of men don't really know their power and how much they can change just by having that little bit of faith. And that just shows me that women are not doing their job in the community as much as they think they are. They're doing men jobs and expecting to get credit for it, versus doing a woman job, which is the things we can't see, which is the spiritual part, the emotional part. And these men, they're not confident because a lot of women are using this feminist role to a negative extent.
For sure.
All right, let me finish combing through.
Some women who might feel that the oppression in their eyes was protection from things that they did not want to be involved with, and that perhaps by opening that door has forced them to do things that they now have to do.
I think by not wanting to be standing up for yourself, you're basically taking on a child's role. And what you're saying is, you take care of me, you provide, you do what I need to do, when everyone's fully capable of taking care of themselves. And by not doing that, you relinquish, again, back to the word power. Power is not only income. Power is standing up for yourself, doing what you feel is right, making your own choices. We're fully capable as women to do the same types of jobs, to do a lot of the things that men do. It's just a question of reprogramming our minds and knowing that we have the ability to do something.
My view of feminism is a little different. It includes men. I want equality. I don't want equality for the women here. I want equality for us.
When you say us, you're talking about men and women?
Everyone.
Everyone.
Everyone, of course. I have grandsons. I have granddaughters. I want their life to be one where they know they're going into that job and they may or may not get it because of their qualifications. If we had time for a conversation, I would have a long conversation with you about, as my friend mentioned, if you really wanted to live in those time periods. Oh my goodness. It would be destructive. My sense of what you said. The man in your life doesn't have the options that you want. He gets to be the provider. He gets to be the male and have the male energy, and that's his job. You, on the other hand, get to be feminine and have all the choices to work or to not work or to be or to not be. I hope that he gets to be masculine and he gets to be in charge and he gets to be a forceful human being in whatever his view or her view is of masculinity, and that she gets to wear the high heels and be as feminine as she wishes. And it doesn't mean that either one of them don't know how to use a hammer. And it doesn't mean that either one of them doesn't change the diaper, because they want to. That's who they are as people. And that's the merging I want to see for my kin.
All right, that brings me to this. Have women been forced to take on masculine roles? Have women been forced to take on masculine roles? Go ahead and start with you first, Brittany.
Well, like I said earlier, masculinity and being masculine and being feminine is about an energy. We all have it. Men have feminine energy and masculine energy. It's about finding that balance and finding the harmony to know when we got to tap into one more than the other. Like, feminine energy is about being, it's about creativity, it's about beauty, aesthetics. Like, masculine energy is about logic, it's about doing, it's about action. And unless we're just gonna be a log just like sitting there, we can't just be 100% feminine. We have to have some masculine energy. And men can't just be 100% do, logic, go. They've got to be emotionally intelligent. Like we've talked about that before. They have to be in tune with, how they're feeling and how what they do can affect someone else, that emotional intelligence. So I think that going back to the question, what was it? Have we been forced into masculinity? I mean, it just naturally is in all of us. And I think that it's just a matter of knowing when you're tapping into too much of it. Now, in some circumstances, yes, some women who are like single moms, I'm just going to use that as an example, a single mom or even a single dad, if you will. Oftentimes when you're carrying the load of everything, when you're a provider, when you're caretaker, when you're Uber driver, if that's what you want, I can't say taxi driver no more because everybody takes Uber. When you're the one doing everything, when you're in that state of just go, do, think, plan, execute, then yes, like you have less space to be feminine. It's very difficult to be feminine when you're put in a position to do everything. So I think there are some circumstances where, like, especially single parents or some type of a caretaker, whether you're taking care of an aging parent or child, you're forced to kind of tap into that masculine energy more than the feminine side.
Okay. Allie, it's on you. Have women been forced to take on masculine roles?
I don't think women have been forced to take on masculine roles. I just think we're better at code switching. Like, we have to know how to turn it on and off. Because I do agree with Brittany. Like, a lot of times it just has to be that way based off life circumstances. Yeah, I don't think women have been forced. I think we've just been better at code switching. That lady that was in the black blazer sitting next to the lady in the green, I feel like she showed it to us in the video. She was speaking very firm, very frank, it came off with a little bit of a masculine energy, and that's okay because that's the space. They're in a discussion group. But do I think that she would have that same energy if she was in an intimate moment with a man or on a date? No. I just think that we've gotten better at identifying it because back in the day, women's, you know, they couldn't be masculine at all. Like you had to be very quiet, very submissive, not stand up, even in very bad abusive situations, right? Like, so I just think women have become better at code switching. That's what I think. I don't think we've been forced. I just think we're smarter about it.
Okay. What about you, Mr. Simone? Have women been forced to take on masculine roles?
I think based on listening to white women, because these are not the first white women I've heard with this opinion. I think based on listening to them, some of them women have been forced into a masculine role back in the day to get themselves out of the situation they was in. And I think the reason why it was forced, the feminism movement was forced, was because by them not having choices, the men weren't doing what they were supposed to do. They just weren't. You got to think about it. The men who created like the stay at home wives and shit like that, these are also the men who enslaved us, who didn't believe in women having rights, who didn't believe in gay people, who didn't believe in other ethnicities having power. These are the same men that made everybody believe, first off, it started with them, you know, like we're going to believe that it's so bad that even the black men, other minorities of this country is not coming together to go against them, right? They're just really, really scared. And I think that was what the white men wanted to do. That's why a lot of these white women, even the younger white women of my generation, they was like, look at our aunties, look at our mothers. They didn't get a chance. They couldn't stand up for themselves. So yeah, I know there are certain benefits to this type of way of thinking, of having a man do it all and everything like that, and what they think masculinity is. But I think what everybody is describing is not always masculinity. Sometimes it's aggression, sometimes it's hypenness, because all masculine men don't share the qualities of being like physically strong and aggressive, and you know there's other qualities to masculinity than the what you see on the surface. You know, it's more spiritual qualities to masculinity that I think men don't know about. But I don't think I think those white women was forced into masculinity. I think it just depends on your circumstances. If you know about the chakras, you got to feel safe in order to be vulnerable. And if you're in a community or in an environment where you don't feel safe, you're automatically forced into your masculinity. So yeah, it's circumstantial. But if we're speaking about far as the movements, yeah, based on those white women and their ideals and what they were going through in their
Mhm.
marriage of being submissive, I can see why they had to step into a masculine role to have choices.
All right. Before I go to Cookie, I had a question because I heard the young lady on the Thursday show mention something about chakras. Like, what is chakras? What is that?
The chakras are energy. So this is stuff that people with like not just only Buddhists, but chakras, they it starts from the bottom to the top. Root chakra, sacral chakra, solar plexus, heart, mind. And honestly, it kind of lines up with Maslow's law too, if that makes any sense. But each chakra is connected to an emotion. It's almost like the fruits of the spirit too. Like it depends on how you want to talk about the chakras. Do you want to talk about it on a scientific level? Do you want to talk about it on a spiritual level? But on a scientific level, you'll notice that each chakra is connected to an emotion. And each emotion that you deal with, working from the bottom of the top, like dealing with feeling safe, helps you deal with the next chakra. Like once you deal with that, the next emotion is easier to deal with. Once you have those two emotions to deal with, the next emotion is easier to deal with. Far as like going from your stomach to your chest, which is your heart, then you could speak more. Once you're able to speak, feel safe, you know your sexuality, then now you have a different gift of knowing, and then you don't take certain things personal. But yeah, that's the simplest way I could put it.
Okay, yeah, that that was a little bit complex. I've
It's
never
a
heard of.
woman thing.
Okay,
Sorry, it's a woman
yeah,
thing.
yeah,
But
yeah.
it
There's a
can
chart.
be put
There's
to
a chart for
psychological
it.
terms. Like I said, it's not all about spiritual. That's why I just said emotions. You know, emotions connect to the brain.
Okay,
So if you look at it from an emotional standpoint, it helps you deal with certain emotions so you can be easier to open up to those hard emotions that's harder to process.
okay. Go ahead, Cookie. What were you saying?
I was saying there's a chart for it where there's a different colors, different represent
I'm
different
gonna look it up for
chakras.
you.
It's CHAKARAS chakras. I think. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's a little bit deep
If
for
you
me.
look it up, put chakra with emotions.
Okay.
so you
'Cause,
can get the scientific aspect of it.
yeah, yeah, I can't. I was looking at a little bit of that Pop the Balloon episode, the last one, and I think that first girl was on that spiritual journey. And I just have this thing about people on spiritual journey. I think it stems from trauma typically, and they just so spiritual that it they just eliminate a lot of different things out their life because they're just on this healing journey. And it's I couldn't deal with it. I mean, I couldn't. They bring the way they bring up the word energy for every single thing. It just becomes a little bit too much for me.
But
Everything
the
affects
energy
everything.
is everything. Everything is
I
energy, though.
understand the energy is everything, but sometimes I think it's an excuse
Yeah.
for them to be able to accept the reality when they so far over on the energy side. Like life is never going to be up or down. So with that understanding, if you're just only looking for good, I understand protecting your peace, but how are you going to overcome things? How are you going to get these testimonies if you don't be able to endure and overcome some things? If you're avoiding everything, I think that
I agree, Lapeef,
it's
and
just
that's
kind
why
of fear
people
based. So I don't,
I agree with that.
and people don't know about spirituality. They think it's avoiding when it's really not. If something is upsetting you, you don't run away from it. You sit in it and you try to address it. And I agree. I don't like when it's time for me to help people, I don't bring up spirituality. I bring that up when it's people who've already done their research and know what they talk about. I don't think that's the way that you should go into like helping everybody because, like he said, a lot of people like, that's negative. I'm staying away from. I'm staying away. And it's like, bruh, like now you're overdoing it, bruh. And some people, even if they go from religion to spirituality, they assume they don't need God anymore. Like because spirituality focuses on yourself and your connection with others, they kind of like discredit God too. So I do agree that spirituality can get confusing depending on who you're learning it from and who's speaking.
I don't
Yeah.
think you should learn anything from anybody when you're dealing with your own spirit. Oh,
You can't help but to. We are all one. That's one of the first spiritual laws. We are all one.
yeah.
You can't help it.
I,
You
I
can't
just
help it.
I just like somebody with an open mind to be able to listen to everything and then be able to try to make some sense out of it. I think if anybody can articulate themselves well and be able to explain it so the other person understands it, then maybe you can kind of change sides or either sway to the other side, whatever it may be. But you at least gotta have an open mind to start. But once people get set in their ways and they like they stubborn, like they don't even want to hear anything else because they've been conditioned where they talk to themselves, where they live in their own reality. So they just remain on that just one frequency. I need
Bingo. That's
I
what I
You're
was
need you
going
to
right.
to
be,
say.
You're right,
I need
Lapeef.
you to, I need you to be at tier 1, 2, 3, 4. Shit, let's go to the other side. Like, how do you know if you're correct if you can't be able to accept hearing other information that you don't agree with?
Yeah,
Otherwise,
You don't like using the word energy, but you use frequency.
but yeah, people that are too spiritual can sometimes become detached from reality, and you hit the nail on the head. Like there
so,
is balance and harmony to it all. Like
yeah. I have an open mind and I'm not afraid to make a decision, but it has to make sense. If it doesn't make, it don't matter what nan one of y'all say. If it doesn't make sense to me, like if you guys can't give us the proper context or support to have me to think another way, then I'm just not going to buy into it because it doesn't make any sense to me. I like to rely on logic. And so if it logically makes sense, right? And I'm okay. I understand that I may not have learned what you've learned and I'll listen,
Enough
but
experience.
but it
Yeah.
just has to make sense. If it doesn't make sense, then
That
I'm
was
But
my
sorry.
that's
whole
another
point.
part of
That was my whole point.
spirituality.
And you shouldn't have to listen. You shouldn't have to. This might not be the moment or wherever you are for you to be like, oh, I get it. It might be uh, at a different place. So, like, when I
That's
started my spiritual journey, I was alone and just decided that the middle people were my problem when I was connecting to God. That's all that it was for me.
Mm.
Everybody was like, "Oh, you don't go to church, you don't go to church." And they confuse it with me not believing in God, which is completely opposite, but it is what it is. That's the kind of negativity that I don't what I've learned with spirituality is to choose your battles. Now, will I get on here and talk shit? Yeah, absolutely, because that's what we're here for, right? But when I walk through life and I'm looking at people or I'm having a conversation with someone that might want to date me and they're like, "Oh, you don't go to church," and it turns into he's being judgy. which is not, you're not the one for me. So I don't think that's avoidance. I just think that's knowing what you want and knowing your boundaries. You're not going to force me to go back to church. I chose to leave the church a long time ago.
Okay. I want to thank you guys for enlightening me about chakras. Let me get your opinion on this. How have women been forced to take on masculine roles? Cookie?
I think every fabric of the being of the female is woven by the male. Every masculine woman, every angry woman, was created by a male. And it doesn't mean that I hate y'all. I just think that if her dad wasn't there to protect her, the males are the leaders of society. That's where I'm at with it. But ask me the question one more time. I just came from a very busy place.
Have women been forced to take on masculine roles?
I don't think we were forced to. I think we kind of accidentally tripped into it by the way we were being treated, and it's a survival mechanism. It's not a choice. It's not something that women choose to do. It's more or less a situation where that's just that. It's kind of like you see a guy and you're like, why is he acting like that? Why is he gang banging? Why is he doing that? You know, that's what he saw. You know what I mean? So when you have a woman that's defensive or whatever, being masculine or independent, it's definitely because something happened with her with a man where she feels like she has to have that guard up or just do it herself.
Okay. Get you these couple super chats. Kelvin Cook, $5 says, what up, Lapeef in chat? How you go from here to here and still have standards? Coffee date. Let's talk about it. 50-50 was too much. And lastly, AP accountability partner, $5 says, this will make a great Wednesday panel and talk. I vastly disagree with most of the opinions here, but ladies, good combo. Thank everybody has contributed. Let's go ahead and get back into this reaction. Here we go. Did I skip past it? Yeah.
Point. Women should prioritize family over career.
I think that women have done that in the past, and they found themselves lost for their own, they had no self-identity. As a consequence, they, went through a lot of depression and felt very unfulfilled. And I think this thing about, men and women gender roles, it's like we're all human beings, and we all have gifts, and we all have talents, and it's up to us to figure out what and how we want to contribute them to the world. And so by doing that, we find our place in the world.
So do you think women are more prone to being better nurturers to children?
I think men can also nurture children as well. There are plenty of single fathers. In fact, when you mentioned earlier about, a man with a hammer or a woman with a hammer, I think, we all have the ability to do multi-things.
So you don't think that some of that is more nature versus nurture in terms of a woman's ability?
If it's inherent?
Correct.
I think that it is part of women's nature. However, men can learn it too. And that's what feminism has taught men.
I know you talked about women and their need for fulfillment.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that being a mother is fulfilling?
I think being an attorney is fulfilling. Being a doctor is fulfilling. Being, a mother could be fulfilling for somebody. Being whatever, whatever you label yourself as is fulfilling.
How do the children benefit or
I think
suffer from?
By being a role model and going out into the world and then coming home, and when your children then come home and spending your evenings together, I think then they see that they can do something, and you're showing your daughters in particular that they have the ability to also have a career and have a family.
When the woman is going out to work and getting the fulfillment she needs, who is taking care of her children? If her husband also wants to go to work.
Right. There, people based on their own individual life and their lifestyles, they find alternatives. A nanny, or whether they stay with a grandparent, or whether they're in school and they've got somebody someone to pick them up, take them to, their activities. But what's important there is that they find a way. Families, usually find their own individual ways of handling those types of things. But I think what's most important is that a woman claim her right to also be out in the workforce, and that she's doing something that gives her a sense of fulfillment.
All right, that brings me to this question. Should women prioritize family over career? Should women prioritize family over career? Now, I do understand, before I go to somebody, it looked like Cookie came off the mic, so I'll go to you first. But I do understand how the dynamic is nowadays, right? If the money is not coming in, then maybe both people have to go just to be able to afford the bills and be able to afford the lifestyle that the family needs. Um, Now that I'm older and a little bit wise, I do understand the benefit of a woman being able to stay home to raise the kids. I don't think a lot of men position themselves to be able to do that before they decide to have a family. I think that a lot of kids are accidental. They're not planned. And if it was planned accordingly, then maybe we can bring kids into an environment where they are able to benefit from the parents mostly being able to teach them versus sending them out to the nannies and the home daycares and the schools and so forth, right? So um, I do think that as we look to the next generation, because we're grown, right, and I'm pretty sure a lot of us haven't instilled those values within our kids. It's not too late, but I think we have to start looking for the next generation because we could talk about it all day. It's too late for us, and it's probably too late for our children. So we have to make sure that our kids, when they have children, to pass some of those gems, and hopefully it can make sense to them, where they will change the similar generational behaviors that we endured. But go ahead, Cookie. What are your thoughts? The question is, should women prioritize family over career?
I agree because um when my daughter was a oopsie, and I really got like burned one time for saying that online, and I'm just glad people are openly saying that kids can be accidents. But I was a pre-law student in college, and when I found out I was having my daughter, that went out the window. So I did put my family before my career. At that point I thought I was getting married, and then we didn't. And so I started teaching. So my schedule would allot time for us to have the same vacations and the same days off, the summer break off. And um, my daughter at 20 still lives with me. You know what I mean? Until she's married, she can stay with me as long as if she wants, if when she gets married, she can go. You know what I mean? But had I not, I'd be an attorney. I feel like if I would have not put a family before a career, because teaching is easy. I can do that in my sleep. I don't consider teaching a career, it's a job. Just throwing that out. I'm just saying. It might be a career for somebody, and I'm not shitting on anybody's career. But teaching was definitely something I did for her. So now it led me to an epiphany in class the other day when I was giving all these final exams and kids were begging me to change their grade after doing no work all semester. I was like, why am I even still here? My daughter's 20. So, it's time to move. But yeah, women should definitely put their career. You have to. You're carrying a human being, and then the human being comes, and especially if you don't end up married to the father, you super duper have to put your career on the side, or you won't know your child. And I had great mom and dad that watched my daughter, great grandparents whenever I wanted to, but I still needed that connection with my child. So, and she knows her dad as well, so it was the same for him. But he got to do what he wanted, you know. And I'm not bitter about that. He should have, but as the mom, I had to hold back on what my dreams were to be a mom. Period.
Okay. Brittany.
Yeah, I agree with you, Cookie. Might be overusing this word, but there are different seasons. There are seasons of sacrificing. You know what I mean? Like, it doesn't mean that you can't pursue your dreams of being an attorney. If you care to still do that, you can go back, but you recognize that in that particular season, you had other priorities. And I think that's what women really need to give themselves more grace on. It's like, even when it comes to fitness and nutrition, like there's a season where we're not going to be snatched. We're not going to look like top tier. You know what I mean? You know, I had 3 children 1 year apart. And, you know, now I look totally different than what I looked like during that season. And it's like, I think social media can really create these false sense of reality. But there's definitely a season for sacrificing. So I agree with what she said. At some point in time when you're having children, you're definitely going to, they're always going to be the priority, but you're going to have to sacrifice some of what you might want to do in that season, you know, and then once they get to a certain age, you can start doing some things a little differently. Like I shared, you know, just my personal story. Let me see, how old was my oldest in 2021? I think it was like 6 or something like that. I can't remember, but I don't want to do the math. That's when my transformation journey started, where I started pouring into my own cup again. For a season, I really didn't have too much to pour into my cup. And I know with the self-care advocacy and all of that, sometimes, you know, it can guilt you into thinking that you're just not doing something right. But I'm a self-care advocate, but I just want to remind people that there are seasons to this thing. Like, so definitely we have to sacrifice at some points in time.
And if your child is a good child, they say, like, my daughter just went and got my pedicure paid. She paid for my pedicure. She was like, Mom, no, you're coming. And I was like, I got a show today. She was like, they can wait. And I was like, okay, because she got to go to work. They get grown and they reciprocate. I don't ask for nothing, but my daughter, she is a good kid. And I think that the difference would have been if I'd have been like, no, I'm going to law school, and wouldn't have spent any time with her, she probably would have resented me a little bit, I think. And I wasn't taking that chance, especially not with a little girl. If it was a boy, first of all, he'd be living with his dad. That's point blank, period. So I wouldn't even have to worry about none of this. I'd already be an attorney for an NFL team somewhere. But because I had a daughter and had to teach her how to be a woman, yeah, it was huge. So
Yeah.
she's right. Your season, you got to pick and choose. When you make that decision to have a baby, ladies, it's not about you anymore. Sorry. It's just not. Whether you married or
Until
not.
you have that time and to where you can, you know,
Yeah. Then
because
you will snap out of it though. When you realize that
yes.
my daughter's 20, I realized I'm like, I need to go do what I wanted to do now because I'm only 42.
Yeah.
So.
And even before that, because I know some people watching might be like, 20 is too old. I mean, my oldest is he's 10 now. So I have a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and an 8-year-old. And I have a couple of days a week where it's like, those are my days to do what I want to do. You know what I mean? Their dad is the one responsible for everything else on those days, because it's important. Like the saying goes, if you're constantly pouring from your cup, I know we hear this all the time, but it's so real. If you're pouring, what do you have left for you? I like it where they show the cup and they're pouring into the cup and there's an overflow. It's like the overflow is for everyone else. What's in your cup is for you. So like, definitely it's about finding your rhythm. You know, when you have toddlers, when you have small children who are not as independent, the rhythm's going to be very different. But once they become a little bit more independent, and once it's easier for you to tap into your community to help you, you know, like then you can find that balance and that harmony. And I'm gonna pass the mic around, but one other thing I'll share is I did read something before when thinking about all of this that said it's not necessarily about the mom or the dad being the ones present as caretakers, but it's more about the environment, the emotional support, and the quality of care. So like some might argue that both parents can be gone out of the house working, you know, when they have a newborn, but as long as they can find the right quality of care and the right environment and the support system, that child will still grow up to be, you know, successful and stable. And I kind of feel that because Like my mom, she's always been a career woman. You know what I mean? And so I spent a lot of time with my grandmother growing up. Like I think a lot of people from our generations, you always hear it, like we were always at our grandparents' homes with all the cousins, you know what I mean? And a lot of us turned out okay, you know? So I think it really is based on the quality of care in the environment, more so if it's the mom or the dad per se. Oh, we can't hear you.
Yeah, I know. My bad. Allie, it's on you. Should women prioritize family over career?
I will preface and say that do I think it's important that even if you choose to not have kids, that you find something fulfilling in your life, whether that be a career, side hustle, whatever. At the end of the day, do I think women should prioritize family? Absolutely. Because everything, I don't know, I feel like I see it all the time where women are just like, oh, I gotta put in these extra, no one cares. Like, go home. You know what I mean? Like, go pick up your kid, you know? And I do feel like I'm very, very blessed to be a part of an organization that prioritizes that. Like, my team is amazing. It's like, hey, you got ice skating with your kid at 3, go do it. We don't give a shit. Like, you know what I mean? So, I think it's natural. I think it's normal. I agree with all the ladies on the panel. Like that's your priority. The job will come and go, right? Is there a level of fulfillment that you can gain from it? Absolutely. Because I also agree that there also are women that have no identity outside of their children and they become like empty nesters and they don't know what to do with themselves, you know? Or, also pouring into the cup thing. Like I run into women all the time that are like, because I always have my nails and lashes done. That's my thing. I love it, you know? And they'll be like, oh, I don't do that because I've got 2 boys. And I'm like, all right, well, you're a hard 35 Kansas City, ma'am. Like, I do what I do to make me happy. Like, you know, like that type of toxic family care, I think is just like, that's over the top. But no, I do think it's natural and normal for women to prioritize their family lives over their work lives because again, it boils down to the men are at the top. I don't want that target on my back. I don't want to be director, C-suite level. Have that extra work, do it. I want to be out, in and out, get my money, peace. Like, no, I don't want to put in that extra work. Nope.
Okay. That's Simone, it's on you. Should women prioritize family over career?
I think it depends on if she's single and if she has a man or not. If she's single, she should be prioritizing her career, building some, and even if it's not a career job, she should be keeping herself busy somehow, working on some type of self improvement, whether that's through her career, her health, some type of self improvement. If they're in a marriage, I think she should prioritize the husband, even if she has to work. I had to work before, and my child's father, when he got out of jail, um, he had to be the stay-at-home dad. And while he was the stay-at-home dad, though, I was still able to do my job as a woman because he did pour into me. So it's not like I had to go to work and I came home complaining about having to be the emotional support system for my family because he poured so much into me that I was able to do both. And he wasn't just staying at home. He was actively working. He was actively working on his career and opening up new opportunities for himself. Even when he was in jail, when he realized he made the mistake, he got his GED and a trade of construction in there. So he wasn't just someone who was just stagnant, saying these are my mistakes and I'm just gonna no. He was actively working to put himself into a better position. And because he poured into me, and that's why I think when people define masculinity, they always like, oh, he works all the time. But for him to know, like, okay, God put her in this position right now, and right now I need to focus on this, and him knowing in his heart that he would be a provider, it was easier, I think, for him to pour into me. And even with the guy I'm dating now, same thing. Like now it's to the point where he has learned what I learned. And now I'm like, dang, I'm so used to being the one that was right. Now I'm learning how to be quiet. And now he's using a lot of the things that God has taught us to get me and remember, like, hey, I'm supposed to be the leader. You built me up for this moment. You got to trust me. And it's like, dang, now I'm seeing the fruits of my labor. And it did take a while. And I think the world tell women sometimes that you have to have a time limit on your job towards the man you love, but that's unconditional love. It doesn't come with a time limit, and you end up seeing the fruits of your labor. So I'm always say, when it comes down to you, if you're in a marriage, you love this person is trying his best to pour into you, your focus should be him, because once he's healed and he's following God the way he's supposed to do, your family gonna be straight.
All right, before I continue that video, let me just ask the ladies a question, right? So the women that's on the panel right now, would you say you guys are into your career right now? Would you guys say that you're well into your career?
I'm into
You
my
said well
I'm into
into?
both.
Yeah, yeah. Just in tune with it. You know, like you've established it. You're there and you're gonna be there.
Yes.
No.
I'm not established, but like
Okay.
this is what I plan to do for my career podcast.
Okay. So if you meet a man, right, or if you may have a man and he has a vision, would you give up your career to support that man's vision if you're looking to him to be a husband?
As long as that vision not having more children, yes.
Okay.
I think
Now let me tap into that masculine energy and get logical. It depends. If his vision can replace my income and maintain a certain quality of life for us, sure. But I don't know about getting on a struggle bus. That vision has to come with some fruit. You know what I mean? It's got to come with fruit.
But let's be for real. Are we really like entertaining dudes that don't have no fruit though?
No, we are not. I wish Hank was on here right now so he could get it started.
Right.
We are not.
So
and I think
that
that's
wasn't
part
even
of the
that didn't even
problem in
cross my
today's
mind.
society. I'm
Because
gonna be honest.
But you'll be surprised. There's a lot of men with vision and no solid plan or track record or history of producing anything. You know what I mean? Like anybody can have a vision, you know, but ambition will only get you, or what is it? Motivation will only get you so far, but discipline is what produces fruit
I
and
need to
action.
see
Like, what's your
that
track record?
business plan PowerPoint. You feel
Yeah,
me?
like
I
what
need
have
to
you
see
done?
that.
Yeah.
I mean, this is kind of my pet peeve because it happens to me all the time in trying to date. Like these guys who have entrepreneurial ADHD drive me nuts.
Mm-hmm.
Like you don't have a strategy, you don't have a plan, you're just painting a fancy picture. And in 1 month, one month you want a CDL, the next you buy a truck, the next month you want to start a clothing line, the next you want to do okay, if you actually have some equity behind what you're saying, then potentially yes, I can give up my career or whatever. But for me, I feel like I can supplement with what I do anyway. So it's just like, I'm gonna be like, all right, let's see what you got. All right. And then let me watch and see, because you're leading. But it's just, I don't know. I just think we're having a crisis right now with that entrepreneurial ADHD because of social media and everything. Like, be realistic, like you want to be about it, but you have nothing to the strategy to implement what the heck you're talking about, and you don't want to put the work in and to commit. They'd rather commit to that versus anything else, but then it only lasts a month. So I don't know, it's funny to me because it's like my face literally drops when these conversations happen on dates.
That, you know what, Ali, that goes back to having why educated women are kind of disliked, because you can't blow smoke up their ass. You know what I mean? When it comes to that, because I literally turn into the Shark Tank.
Yeah.
If you're talking about, well, I don't want you to have to work, baby, and you spitting all this, the Mac stuff to me, and I'm like, well, I need you to show me like revenue, business plan. What are your projections in the next? You know what I mean? Like, I need to see that. I need to see some pie charts. Like, what are we talking about here? Because I mean,
right.
I got this whole goal and I'm on this journey of fulfillment. In order for me to break stride for you right now and for love, I need to understand where it is that you're taking me.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what some men get offended by. Like, oh, you just don't trust me off the rip. Sir, I have a job. I have what I need. Like, I'm on my way. I've been accepted to law school, so you're trying to tell me I don't need to go. Now you need to explain to me why I don't need to go.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, it's like I'll follow you until where you're leading me ain't making sense. You know, like what are the reserves? Like even if you have a business plan and you have projections, what can we put aside? Like what you have? Yeah, in case the vision doesn't turn out the way you projected it to. You know what I'm saying? Like,
yeah. And
feel-
I'm not sitting here from a pedestal saying that I haven't fallen, because I'll say firsthand, I've lost a crap ton of money being like, all right, I'm gonna try and trust you and see what happens. And then you're like, oh wait, nothing happened, you know? So I've played that feminine role, but now I've learned and I'm more cautious that your hustle sucks and it didn't turn into anything. So I need to see
And
more
that goes
concrete.
back to what I said earlier, that women are literally the way we treat men are created by how men treat us.
Yeah.
Like, we know for a fact that some of these hustles are garbage, you know, from experience. It ain't nothing. We're not trying to be hardcore. We're not trying to be independent. We're not trying to be whatever it is that y'all saying non-feminine. We just know, we have intuition that God gave us. And y'all don't like to listen. They just don't like to listen.
Right. I'll
I'm
still
gonna
be
tell you,
your
I
number one
think that,
cheerleader. Just I'm wait.
Exactly.
I'm gonna tell you
That
something
part.
else I've seen. I'm gonna tell you something else I've seen too is that some women align themselves with men where they can attach themselves to kind of still push their goal, push their dreams and desires, and as far as where they want to go. They will align, and then they'll try to add to that man's vision or try to alter it, so to speak.
I think that women now making the same mistake men did. Men start dating for logical reasons. They not dating for unconditional love. Based on the question you asked me, if I love this guy and he say he has a plan, first I'm going to make sure he knows God. If that man knows God and he's doing what he's supposed to do and he's aligning himself with God, he's taking care of himself, I'm going to support that man because faith is the substance of things hoped for, but the evidence of things not seen. I know my power as a woman. I know God's power. So I will use those. If I love that man and I say I love him and this is somebody I decided I want to be with, I don't, we could be living in my grandma's basement. I don't give a damn. If we're doing the healthy things that we're supposed to do for our lives, you have a plan, God is working with you, I'm cool. As long as I have a shelter over my head, food in my stomach, I feel like I'm okay with that. I feel like I want unconditional love. I feel like I've had it before and I feel like I'm currently experiencing again, but from an adult standpoint. And I see how you can easily be like, I'm going to date on certain qualifications, what makes me feel safe right now. But I feel like when it comes down to love, for real, it takes a lot of faith. I think God would trick you. He will not hand you your man on a silver platter at all. But if you know you can't, for me, if I know I can't have some, as a woman of God, this isn't just as a woman who just wants the man to do what she want to do, but as a woman of God, because I know my heart, my morals, and my core values. If I have an influence on that man, 9 times out of 10, his core values and stuff aligns with mine. He just been taught the wrong way, which is the reason why he's coming into some obstacles. So I'ma say, yeah, I'm a rock with him. If I love him, I'ma pray for him. And until God tells me to move, I'm not gonna move. I'm a stay there.
Okay. I'm going to get to a little bit more of this video.
Not every woman necessarily wants a child.
Right.
And I know in my own circle of 4 women who are young and are making the decision that that is not for them. And it's happening more and more. But I really think that somewhere children's rights should be considered. So it takes 2 to make a child, and there should be a commitment about bringing that child, and it should come from both of them. And there is probably a biological part where, since a woman carries the child, she's probably more attached to the child when they're born. But after 2 or 3 years, sometimes it's the father that's the, and I know situations like that, they've stepped into the parenting role and the mother has moved back. So that's because it's fluid today. I mean, in my generation, that would probably have been unheard of. But since we're giving people these choices, I think that it's very difficult to generalize like that. And every individual, including men, have a right. And I think to assign men the provider role is to put a yoke on them. It's a lot of responsibility. And I know men who've held down jobs that they're miserable in because they're supporting a mortgage and a wife and 2 children. And that also is as unfair as keeping a woman home without having any kind of expression about who she is.
All right, that brings me every woman. She mentioned something about every woman doesn't want a child. How do you guys feel about that? It's something I often bring up too, because people that are biblical, or they may mention that a woman's purpose is to procreate, right? So if she doesn't procreate, then I hear people say, well, not every woman is meant for marriage. So women that don't have children, every woman doesn't want a child, and say they don't want a child. What do they do? We'll start with you first, Brittany. Or I seen Ali came off the mic, then we'll go to Brittany.
Oh, I just had this conversation with my cousin. My cousin, she's in her 40s and she doesn't have any children. She's been married for like 22 years. I feel like I know a lot of people that meet her demographic. And her flat out answer was, no, I spent she prioritized her career, which that's her thing. She's like, I spent way too much money on my law degree and I love what I do to want to give that time up. That was the thing with time. That time up to have kids, and they're celebrating their anniversary on a Disney cruise next year. So they're living their best lives. Like, so yeah, that's kind of, I don't know if that helps shed light. I think we're going to see that be more. I mean, the birth rate's been going down since 2015. It's just too expensive to exist too. So yeah, I don't know if that shed light.
What are your thoughts about it, Brittany? Every woman doesn't want a child.
Every woman doesn't want a child. Yeah, I mean, it's based on personal values. Everyone is different. I don't think that just because you're a woman, that means you have to produce a child. There are women who have tried and can't. You know what I mean? So if we were all supposed to do it, we'd all be able to do it. Like, some women can't have children. So, I mean, it's important. Definitely. It helps the world go around. It helps to continue to grow creation, but it's based on personal values.
Okay. What about you, One Country?
We should mind our damn business. I mean, that woman don't want no kids, then she don't want no kids. It's very, very simple. I can't come up with a rhyme or reason because I have a child myself, but I mean, at this point, it is what it is. It's 8.5 billion people on the planet right now, probably even more. That's only who they can account for. Does it make her any less of a woman because she doesn't bear a child? No. So if she finds a man that is okay without having kids, because some men don't want kids, and if she's lucky enough to find a man that doesn't want children, and they're gonna live happily ever after, going on cruises like Ali's friends. So
My best friend's the same way. Her and her husband are like the it couple. They have no kids. They're cruising right now. Like, they have a beautiful home. They're like so happy. Like, I love that for them, So
Okay. Before I go to you, Dad, let me just ask the women that do have children, like, I don't think a lot of people plan children, but after you have the child, because I've seen women that had children, they be like, I'm so grateful that for my child. They didn't want any kids, but after they had the child, they had a different approach when it comes to being a mother. So, like, what are some of the benefits where having a child, you actually seen the value in it? Because Ali spoke to it, it's a given, right? If you don't have kids, you can do whatever it is you want to do. But what are some of the benefits to having children, in your opinion?
When I first got pregnant, I thought what you just said, Lapeef. I'm like, I'm pregnant. He wants this baby more than I do. I am in a selfish space right now. I do not want a kid. I just knew I was in a selfish space. I didn't want to. I just want to think about myself. I just want to carry about myself. I didn't want to worry about my eating habits. I used to smoke. I'm like, I got to stop smoking. but once I had my baby, I felt like a mom. I felt mature. I felt like a wife, even though me and him wasn't married yet. I felt like a wife. I felt like I felt real good. Even after him passing, just dealing with my daughter, I was going through like depression. So she kept me from like wanting to like have suicidal thoughts. And another thing that I appreciate her now that she's 11, the things that I don't like about myself, she tends to pick up on because they tend to mimic you in all ways. So she's a mirror of me. So I love that I have her because when she's doing something, I'm like, okay, I know she got that from somewhere. And when I take a look at myself, I'm like, dang, I got to work on that. So she shows me things that I need to work on. She keeps me in this empathy type mind frame. Even with the guy I'm dating, I've been with him for 7 years, on and off, up and down. And I even asked her, I'm like, how do you feel about him? What do you think about him? Because other people would tell me just from how often they see me with him, they're like, he's a good man, he's supportive, he's this. And I'm like, if you know what our relationship problems look like. But then when I take that out and look at like the growth we're going, she's like, he's a good dad, he's here. She brings clarity to our situation, and this is her idea from as a kid standpoint. She's not conditioned to think like this. She's not conditioned to think a certain man is good, but she knows the value that he's bringing to her life. And sometimes I feel like I overlook that. So my daughter, she really brings me back to a place from before I came traumatized. She reminds me of who I was before I endured these traumas. And she encouraged me to be that person, even with my traumas, to stay this loving, outgoing, like, I don't know, she just reminds me to be the best version of myself.
All right, go ahead, Brittany.
Yeah, I think having children is a beautiful thing. It's the most challenging and rewarding thing ever. Having children truly teaches you how to love, like, unconditionally. It makes you a better person. That's just it. It's the biggest challenge and blessing. It teaches you how to love. So yeah, that's the benefit.
I think the benefit of having children is just like she stated, knowing unconditional love. When you look down at the little baby and everything um in that little life form you created is dependent upon you for a long, long time. And I tell my daughter all the time that she saved my life because I was going to a very big university and surrounded by all these guys, and I probably would have ended up in like an empty marriage, I think, if it wasn't for her, because she made me get my mind right. Um, Not to saying that I'm lowering my standards and changing my boundaries, but um, she definitely made, first of all, my dating life disappeared for a long time because it was just me and her dad co-parenting. That's another thing that I gave up. Um, but I think that saved me in a sense of I was only 22, so I wasn't dating, but also wasn't getting beat, but getting turned into roast beef. So I had no life, but it was the most peaceful time in my life ever. So I went from like LSU party girl, track star to, a 22-year-old mom. And I think it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Yeah. I think if we can all go back in time, we'd probably rather have planned our kids, and maybe some people on the panel have planned it. But one of the things I think about for folks that don't have no kids is who's going to take care of you. One of the things that you do, if you love your kids properly, then you will have somebody, an additional um, body and person to be able to take care of you and be there for you. People that even if you have brothers and sisters, if they have established their own family, sometimes family is just not there for you. I've seen it. I've seen it where grandmothers and grandfathers, mothers, brothers, they don't really have that support. It may be like one or two people that was in an immediate family to actually be there for you. So and then I think about the whole like legacy. Who's gonna? It's a part of you that's out there. So who's gonna carry that on? And if you don't procreate, then it's just like nobody to really keep it going.
I'm
See,
That,
not
I
gonna
don't
lie.
know.
Do you
I don't know
feel
if I
like
like that because why do people care about? Why do people care when they say legacy? Why do you care about people that you will never know, that you will never have a conversation with, that you'll never meet?
well,
I
because you got to think about it. Like even when I say now, right? If you have kids, it's not about you anymore. It's really about them.
Mm-hmm.
It can be about you, but now you have to make sure you take that you're setting up the situation so that you're not going to be there. A lot of people think that it's just all about them. They're so selfish that it's all about them until the time that they die. But once you procreate, it's a sacrifice. You
and
know,
I
Mm-hmm.
was just
and if you have everything in order and established, then maybe you can be able to enjoy a little bit of you and a little bit of them. Life is about balance. But
Well,
once
when I
you
hear legacy, that's why I think further down the line. That's what I hear when people say, "What about people think about me when I'm gone? My legacy."
I'm just thinking it's a part of you. Like if you, and it's kind of hard to speak on it if you don't have children, but when you do have children, you can actually see a little mini version of you. Even when you look at baby pictures, you'd be like, "Damn, that's how exactly how I look." So, like you're raising. Even as I get further into parent, because I wasn't as much as a good father that I was now beforehand. There's some things that I've learned along the way, and even just being on some of these panels, I'm like, "Damn, it's a lot of things that I didn't learn, but now that I know better." And so now that I know better, I'm able to apply myself in a different way when it comes to being a parent, and like they depend on you. So some of the things that I didn't receive, and I understand why I didn't receive, and I understand that I was at a disadvantage. But now that I know, I'm able to show up how I should be, and to actually like, there's nothing like seeing that child um be proud of you being the parent that you're supposed to be. Like they love you, and it's like so many different ways that I can't even really even describe. And it's just like, and until you're a parent, you won't really understand that. So I think there are some benefits, and a lot of people miss that benefit because it wasn't the focus. But being able to know that I've raised this kid up to par, or these children up to par, and they are gonna be a reflection of me in some form of fashion, I'm cool with that. One of the things my grandfather always told me was that I'm not going to always be here. My grandfather's still here, but he always tell me I'm not going to always be here. So he was making sure that he prepared me so that if he wasn't here, I knew how to be a man. And so
and this
it's one of those things that it's an enjoyment with it. People always think being a parent is always a bad thing, but when you do it correctly, or you align yourself with making sure you sacrifice that, there's a benefit to it. And you got to get out of that selfish mindset and understand that we are here too. One of our duties is to lead the world in a better place. And how do you do that? The best way to do it when you're a parent is to make sure that your kids are up to par, so that they're not doing no dumb shit moving forward in life.
Yeah, and I think that I agree with you with that legacy stuff. I think more men should start seeing it like that, like understand that this is a part of you. Like, you know what I'm saying? This is a reflection of what type of man you are. I think sometimes but on the other hand, I understand where like Allie kind of going, because it's like you said, Lapeef, it's not supposed to be a selfish thing. And I do feel like a lot of women end up single moms because they expect unconditional love from that guy. But as long as they have the unconditional love from the kid, they don't even really care about the guy. And sometimes I think when you have a kid just specifically so you can feel unconditional love, it's kind of selfish because now you're not even thinking about giving it. And I feel like a lot of women do that. Like, if you want to have a kid, you should have a kid because of what you can do for them. Like what you said, Lapeef, it's like you're talking about building a legacy. What you speaking about is pouring into them. Whereas I feel like some women, like I said, they don't have it for to be poured into. They just like, I want to experience unconditional love. So let me have, yeah. And then
Yeah,
they don't
And
and then
and
they
it
don't
goes to
realize as
say
many
like,
times that they forgive the kid, you 9 times out of 10 got to forgive your husband too. Like, I realized my daughter hurt my feelings beyond measure sometimes, and she don't even realize it. by some of the things she do or some of the things she say, or how now she's been on her cycle for a while, so she's coming to those teenage emotions where she don't want to be around me, and she's making mistakes that she feel like even when I have to confront her about them, she's like, oh, you don't like me anymore because I make this mistake. It's like having that kid and loving them right and raising them right makes you realize what type of unconditional love is needed for your husband or whoever your spouse is too.
Ali, you wanted to say something? Or
Oh, I was just going to throw in, I do agree with the point that if you're going to leave a legacy, put out quality individuals. Don't just be like, there's too many, I feel like, men out there that I want to leave a legacy, but then they don't, they leave a single mother. Like, that ain't leaving a legacy. Like, you. So, yeah, that's all I was going to say.
go ahead.
I was only going to say that I feel like the legacy part of it is more of the male aspect. I feel like the mothers, but because earlier Ali was like that, the legacy part is it's kind of weird for her, and I get that because as moms, it's automatic. We feel the baby grows in our stomach, and it's a part of us, for however long. But the legacy part comes in with the male, and I believe that more men should think like that. But like Ali said, um, I don't think women are worried about legacies because they birthed the baby. Like, it's a part of them, literally. Like, it takes away from us, like our bones and our teeth and our hair and all of that. So when a man says he wants a legacy, it's a good thing to hear as long as he's a good person. But if he admits to society, we like, nah, dog, I don't think you should make no more use. You know what I mean? And it's a lot of men out here right now argue, well, they'll probably not have babies because they probably incels and don't even like women. But they arguing on the internet with women like, who raised you? You know what I mean? It couldn't have been your grandfather. It couldn't have been your dad. And if they did, you didn't listen. They out here going ham on single mamas probably because their mom was single. And now they zesty. You know what I mean? So it just all depends on what kind of legacy you're trying to leave. If you're just going to raise another angry, zesty dude arguing in comments, just go childless, bro. Spare us all. Spare my daughter. Spare his children. Spare her children. Just don't. That's all I gotta say.
Yeah,
All
because
right.
oh, go ahead.
So I'm gonna play this. Play one more clip, man, and then we'll go ahead and get up out of here.
So one, just feminine, masculine energy to me is much different than rights. I'm blessed to grow up in a situation where I now have those rights because of the efforts that women before me made, right? So now when it comes to the prioritizing of like family or career, that is the key. We have choice. We have choices. I think what a lot of women have to go deeper into is both are going to have pros and cons. And it comes with self-awareness of who you are, what's ultimately going to fulfill you. You can have it all, but not all at once. So if you're going to pursue a career, then it may not come with the relationship with your kids. So I think ultimately women just have to understand, what am I okay with and what's going to fulfill me, because we have the beauty of so many choices.
In this world and what we see today, do you believe that women should prioritize their family over their careers?
I can't say should, because that's their journey to walk. I don't think that it's women or men. I do believe that women have more of a nurturing spirit. I want to operate in my strengths, right? And I believe that a man most likely wants to operate in his strengths. But then you have circumstance. Then you have lifing. So even with the gender roles, you have certain strengths to fill those roles, and I have certain strengths to fill other roles, but they're going to swap, they're going to intertwine, they're going to go up and down and all around. So I can't say what they should do, but I think it's more so the unit, what works for you guys, and ultimately what is going to fulfill you in the end. Yeah.
All right, you're a feminist, you just don't know.
That's where it is. Exactly. First of all, I think it should be a bumper sticker. You can have it all, just not all at the same time. And I'm looking at women who, forgive me for saying these horrible words, you're going to live to be 100 plus. I mean, really. You're not hampered as we were by thinking, got to get out of college, got to get the kids, oh my Lord, definitely have to have them by 30.
And did you work during that time, or were you at home?
I did work. Well, okay. When I was married, I was a stay-at-home mom, and I didn't remarry, so I was a single mom. And yes, I was a respiratory therapist. There's a lot of holidays I was not home. Didn't have that option, had to pay the rent.
But you would have liked to have been home.
Everybody wants to be home.
Not everybody.
I mean, well, yeah, there you go, see?
No, not everybody.
So, do women want it all? Do women want it all? Go with
All
you.
of what though?
Just everything. I mean, sometimes when you have conversations, it seems as though people don't want to compromise. People don't want to meet halfway. One of the things that I look at when dealing with relationships is that relationships stem past just romantic, right? Even when it comes to networking and coworkers and family, like relationships have something in common, and a lot of people struggle with it. So it seems like people have these demands and expectations. They have a list. They want everything to go perfect. So that brings me to this question: Do women want it all?
I feel like women want it all. That's just my opinion. I was at a point where I was like, I felt like I was the feminist woman, like the one who I thrived in school. I graduated high school at 16. I just wanted to work all the time. I was raised by a single mom. And I just felt like when I was dating guys, if they didn't come a certain way, like if everything wasn't on a silver platter, then I was like kind of rejecting it, not understanding that because I'm good in these areas, just the way life works, the way God works, 9 times out of 10, these are the areas I'm gonna have to work on in my femininity because I do thrive so well in these areas. And I do feel like when women, because they may be working, they may be doing this, and that, they either want the man to come with the money. I don't even feel like they just want money or this. I feel like they want it all. They want him to come with every single thing. They want him to come with the money, the spirituality, just everything, to the point where they basically not really doing too much no more. And this is just for the women in my generation. I don't feel like this about like women that's like in they like late 30s or in their 40s. I feel like they're more reasonable with their expectations. But these and the women under me, like the younger in their 20s and stuff like that, I feel like their expectations are unreasonable.
Okay. What about you, Brady? Think women want it all?
I go back to one of the questions someone asked earlier, like, what is all? Are we talking about what? Motherhood, career, relationship? Like, are we just keeping that open?
I think that he mean anything, like having everything you want without any like struggles or sadness, like just having everything given to you without having to work for it. Like you just want it all. Like soon as you
Well,
feel like you got
That's
yourself
not
together, you
realistic
want it
though.
all.
That can't be the question, right?
well,
That's what I
I
thought it
mean,
was.
some women have like a selfish mindset, right? And it can stem from different things. Maybe it could be their upbringing, maybe it could be previous relationships, but nevertheless, do women want it all? We often hear that women expectations are just too high. It has to be a certain way. It has to be exactly the way that they envision it. So do they want it all?
That's what I was saying, Lapeef.
Yeah, I mean, I think, okay, well, if you're talking about it in that context, I think women or everybody wants stability. They want to live a stable life. They want security, right? They want peace. They want joy. I mean, that's a very that question is very hard to answer because that can go down a bunch of different rabbit holes. But I think at the core, yes, when talking about expectations in a relationship, I don't think that women are, it varies. Some women might ask for too much. It's circumstantial. Like, I can only speak for myself. I think that for myself, I want stability. I want security. I want to be, in a situation where I have peace and joy in my life. You know what I mean? I don't think that's unrealistic to want those things.
No, I'm okay with people wanting it, right? But if we're talking about realistically, it's not going to always be that way.
No, for sure. And that goes to something I said earlier, like life is
Yeah.
about seasons, right? And sacrificing and understanding that it's just part of the ebbs and flows of life. Like, one season we might be operating in one way, and another season it might be another way. We have to remain dynamic throughout life.
Right. So I think when I asked that question, do women want it all? A lot of people approach relationships, marriage, friendships, whatever it may be, with the expectation that it's going to be this way. And I think, to me, life has formulas. And if you understand what those formulas are, it'll make your life easier. It would even help you to eliminate some of the high expectations that you desire in life, whether it be relationships, career, children. So if you understand that life is about up and down, then you already know that when you enter a relationship, that it's not going to be always the way that you desire it to be. And so the things that I notice when I'm engaging with folks is how do you respond? Like, that's really important to me, because these variables are given. Even if we don't know the math that our children know, or we've forgotten, we understand what given variables are. And so if we know that this is a given variable, then how are we going to respond to it? It's a given variable that life is going to be up and down. So when you meet somebody, there's a honeymoon phase. Once the honeymoon phase is over and the representatives are down, how are you guys going to respond?
I don't think it's so much that women want so much, and I'm speaking as someone who's older. I think women just don't want struggle love anymore. I don't think it has anything to do with too much. I think a lot of women, and from what I see, a lot of women are, in my opinion, have worked on themselves, know themselves. They have, quote unquote, they're not out here being, overachievers. I think they're just being responsible adults, and they have their life to a point where they know how to take care of themselves, because that's what everybody's saying. You have to be able to be self-sufficient. And then when you ask for that from a partner, it's almost deemed as if, well, you want it all. But if you look at it, you're asking for very basic adult type things. You're asking for somebody that's, do you want to be in a relationship? Let's start there. And in a committed one. Are you able to work with me? If I come into a relationship and I'm already self-sufficient, and I'm not looking at you for absolutely anything, but actually true partnership, and me asking, what do you bring to the table? That has nothing to do with money. That just means, do we want to build something together? Do we want to have experiences and create experiences together? How are we going to get along when those times come, the lows? How are we going to navigate through those periods? Because it's one thing to get with somebody and you create a relationship, start a relationship, and everything's on the high, but you may very well meet somebody very differently during those lows, right? So that's the other part. I don't think women are asking, in my opinion, I don't think that grown women are asking for too much. And a lot of times when a woman says, I want my equal, I'm not quite sure why people automatically assume that she's meaning money, when she could be meaning, are you spiritually equal to me? Are you mentally and emotionally equal to me? Because that's a big thing. We can both make the same amount of money, be high earners, and not be compatible, because mentally and emotionally we may be on two different ends of the spectrum. So that may not matter. I can make more and he can make more. So when they say a woman wants too much, I agree with Brittany. Like, that's very circumstantial, because somebody may say, I only want a man that makes X amount of money and does this, whereas someone else may say, I want someone who's mature, who wants to be in a committed relationship, and they want to go this direction.
So I think that when it comes to relationships, we as women, if we don't do certain things in a relationship, we assume that we're doing everything right. And then we end up leaving that relationship without any, like, I feel like if you leave in a relationship with a bad heart or with a bad taste in your mouth for the person you're leaving, then you didn't leave learning everything you should have learned, because you're avoiding the things you could have learned in a relationship because he wasn't in a certain position, I guess, financially or whatever it is, comfortably for you. I agree with Lapeef. A lot of things have hard times, and it's not up to you how long those hard times last. It's up to you and to God. So I do feel like a lot of women, they get in relationships and expect a certain outcome by a certain time period, or they expect a certain outcome because they feel like what they're doing should give this outcome. And when that doesn't work, it's they want to leave. They don't fight as much as they should fight. And this is just, I make this mistake in my past relationships. I don't feel like this is, you supposed to do that with every guy you're with. But if it's a guy that you love and it's somebody that you want to be with, it's when it's time to handle those situations, he's not going to always handle it the way you handle it. And just because you're a good woman doesn't mean he's going to automatically have the tools to be able to fix those problems. It's like, what steps are you taking as a woman? Are you getting y'all therapy? Are you going to church? Are you doing active things with him to make sure? And I feel like a lot of women, they so concerned about providing. They like, well, I have a job, I have this. He don't care about none of that. So just because you have that don't mean that's going to make him be the man that he's supposed to be. And I think that's where women go wrong. They come into the relationship having so much stability that a man is supposed to have, that they don't really understand, okay, what do my job look like? What do my job feel like? Because just like when you hear a man talk about his job, he don't talk about it the way we talk about doing his job. When we talk about going to work and stuff, it doesn't sound like what a man think about. When a man talk about, he like, I gotta provide for this, I gotta do this. It's more of a like anxious feeling for him. He gets anxiousness from it. That's why a lot of men is avoiding it. These younger men is avoiding it because it does cause anxious. When it's time for us to do our job as a woman, if he's not where he's supposed to be, it's going to be uncomfortable. It's going to feel anxiousness. It's going to feel all these things, but that don't mean you avoid them. I feel like a lot of women don't pray enough. Are you praying yourself through this? Because a lot of the work that we have to do, it's really faith-based. If you want to be honest, our work is not just cleaning the house, it's not just cooking the food, it's really faith-based. You cannot be with a man with these doubts in the back of your head and then be like, well, I'm not expressing it to him, so where's your faith? You have a lack of faith while you're in this relationship with that man, and you're not even willing to admit that, because now you're thinking logically like them. Like you're not using your full power the full way. And I think because thinking masculine brings more physical rewards, like I can show I have a house, I can show I have this, I can show I have that. Women tend to lean on that and use that as a reason to like why they're deserving. But in reality, the work that we do is not seen.
I actually got a question. I know Cookie wanted to say something, but and I one of the things that I heard, I think it was from Myra Golden, it's like how do we know whether we are wrong if we're not listening to the opposition, if we're not listening to opposing views? Like how are you able to come to the conclusion that what the way you were thinking doesn't make any sense? So I guess my question is like, if you've done the work, I know Kim said, what if we've done the work, we're self-aware and we're coming to this table or this relationship or this marriage and we have it all figured out and it's on him. Like, how do you know if your way of thinking is incorrect? How do you know if there's a better way? Like, how do you approach these situations? Because most people think they know it all. I'm under the thing, I know a lot, but the only way that I'm going to be able to figure out if I can do better is if I at least listen. If I listen, not listen to respond, but listen to understand. And if I understand what they're saying, then I'm like, and be honest about it. I never thought about it like that. Or that makes a lot of sense.
But when you say,
I feel like you're not gonna always gain an understanding. Sometimes you have to listen and apply.
but when you said do women want it all? What's happening is women are now allowed to vet whereas they were not able to vet quite at the rate that they were back then. Men have been vetting. So what I don't understand is men vet us just the same. There are certain non-negotiables that they will have. And how do we know that? We know that. I know that I can say this after, 20 years of dating and being in relationships. A man will put you, and I'm not, it's whether you agree, whether it's right, wrong, or indifferent, a man will vet you as, quote unquote, when you're younger, maybe fun or casual. Is that the word, casual? Versus long term and like wife, committed relationship. So men certainly vet women for how they're going to foresee and continuing their legacy, how they're going to, if they want to show up with you, at what function they want to show up with you, if at all, and how serious they're going to take you. We don't need a woman and a man at this day and age, and then at this day and time, we do not need an explanation. Nobody on this panel needs an explanation, because I think we could all agree, and we all know that men vet differently, and we're all treated differently. Women, you flip it, and when women do the vetting, yes, we have to listen, and yes, we have to do our own self work. But the question is, I would say my problem with what, I love you to death, Di, but I don't agree when you say, women, we leave too soon, we need to put in the work. At what cost?
Well, I feel like
At
what
what
you
cost?
said, I agree with you. I don't think that I
hold
don't
on.
think men should
What
court
you
like that.
taught,
Oh,
what you're taught, what I don't agree with, and I'll never do this. What one woman puts up with and what I put up with, she should not be shamed. I'll agree with that. So let me give you an example. If a woman is in a marriage or relationship and her partner is unfaithful and she decides to stay, I'm now at the age where I don't think it's any of my business to go and tell her to leave or not to leave. I don't think I should go online and tell her that she's a complete idiot. He's making her look stupid, A, B, and C. Those are my feelings. That is her husband. That is her relationship. If she has kids, it may be complicated. The only people who should actually be in that relationship are if they have, quote unquote, good best friends, marriage or therapy or counselors for that. And if they have, like, if they go to their church and they have, like, church marriage counselors, those are the only people who should have access and who should have a say in however that relationship moves forward. What I have to say doesn't matter. If she decides to leave, same token, I shouldn't tell her, well, she left too soon. Who am I to tell her that she left too soon? So that's why I say, at what cost? I should not at any point, I shouldn't force what I believe onto somebody else. And that's what I don't
no,
agree
I
with.
understand what you're saying, and I'm gonna answer your question. I when I say that, I feel like God knows your heart. He knows what you want, and He would never put more on you than what you can bear. So I was talking about girls from my generation, people that I've like kind of had to help them realize, like, when they are going through something, I always have to tell them, like, well, did you do this? Did you did that? What type of energy have you had towards it? I think that we as women, we care about what the world tell us to care about. So for instance, we were taught that if a man does this and that, that means he does not love you, that means he does not care about you. Well, that's not always true. If a man can't provide, maybe he don't know how to provide. If a man is cheating, maybe he feels insecure. Everything that a man does wrong doesn't necessarily have anything to do with you. So when you're in a relationship and you taking it personal that way, you may be looking over ways that you can actually help that man, because you're taking everything that he does personal. You can't even connect to him spiritually no more. That's when going back to spirituality, what we were talking about in the beginning. I cannot help someone if my traumas and triggers are steadily coming up when they're going through whatever I can help them with. If I'm taking what they're doing personal, I'm going back to my trauma, and now I'm not thinking about the resolutions that can be helped in that situation. I don't think a woman should just put up with everything. I feel like when I hear women talk about things, they'll say this is what's important, but you're judging a man because the world said he should have this. You're not even judging him now based on what you feel in your heart. You're judging him based on how the world is judging you. You know what I'm saying? If that makes any sense. A lot of women are not really like thinking about what their endurance are. They're making their endurance what the world says it should be. So that's my part, Kim. That's why I say I agree with you. If a woman can put up with this and that's what she's built for, endure that. But this younger generation, they just like, I'm not putting up with shit at all, as if something could be wrong with you. With you being such a good provider, you might like, that was what I had to realize with me graduating high school at 16, always providing, being the oldest in my family. I liked a lot of feminine traits. I was a good woman, but because I lacked certain traits, men were looking at me as a red flag. You know what I'm saying? Not realizing, oh, damn, I could communicate with her. Damn, I could empathize with her. Damn, I could do this with her. But because I lacked certain traits of like, okay, you can do this, you can, or if I didn't say it with a certain tone, I would be overlooked completely, and my communication skills will be overlooked completely because I'm saying it more stern or more, yeah.
We will have healthier relationships when, and I think a lot of people, I think, in my opinion, I feel like more people are. I'll be, optimistic and say I think a lot of women are having healthier relationships because they're using discernment.
Yeah.
That's what I.
But they're just leaving though. A lot of women not even saying, like, offering their spiritual values that could be help, like that could help this man as a source of help. I feel like a lot of women just be like, go get a job, or they just be like, go do this, go do that. But there's no substance behind like him. It's like you have to change his thinking pattern. You have to get in there and think
Nah.
about who he's depending on.
You,
But this
you
is
talking about raising children.
Right.
That's
no,
a
no, no.
man
I'm talking
job.
about if this is somebody you say you love. If you love somebody, you love them
No,
based on what you
it
feel
would
like
never
you
get that
need.
far for me, sis. I ain't even gonna sit here and too much lie to you.
But a lot
My
of
baby
men like that. And this is the thing. Y'all will say stuff like that, but then y'all will also admit that men are not allowed to experience emotions when they're younger.
I
Men are
would never
not
say
allowed to,
that
hold
about
on,
a
let me
man.
finish. They're not allowed to do this, and this contributes to the person they are. Not realizing when do he get that point to experience those emotions? Who's going to, like, for instance, and this is the best thing a married couple has told me. When a man, if a woman is raised by a good father, what does that father do? He provide, protect, and do everything well. When she goes to her husband, she's expecting him to do the same thing. When it comes to a woman, when a man leaves the house, if he has a good mother, what does that mother teach him? Moral compass, spirituality, things of that nature. When he leaves the house, it's up to you as a woman and a wife to continue that guidance. And a lot of women don't want to do it. Just like nowadays, since women don't want to do it, now men don't want to provide. It goes back and forth. Back to what Kim was saying. Men will sit there and pick a woman based on a checklist. But when you read the Bible about a woman submitting to her man, they also say, man, cleanse your woman. So that means you're not supposed to be looking for a perfect woman. You're not supposed to be looking for that checklist. You're supposed to be going into the marriage knowing that you have to do some cleaning and some scrubbing. But because men have all this time been choosing women off a checklist, these new modern day women is like, now I got a checklist too. You got to have this, that, and being tit for tat is just not working.
All right, let me get some of the other women. Let me get, I don't know, Brittany, Ali, or Closet Batty want to chime in.
Yeah, I'll chime in real quick before I hop off. I will, I mean, I'm not pulling any stats or anything like that, but I will argue and say, just based on the nature of a woman, that we will try what we can to help before we leave. And I'm, even thinking about my marriage, we're nurturers. We care. When we love hard oftentimes. I think there's a small population of women who are very selfish and who get into marriage for all of the wrong reasons. But when we love, we're going to sacrifice, we're going to pour, we're going to do whatever we can to help that person in their shortcomings. But at some point in time, you also have to recognize that transformation and that growth is really an internal thing for that person. It's only so much that you can do. And once you have done what you can do to try to help, whether it is providing them, spiritual support, like scriptures, if you're talking about the Bible, or some other type of inspirational quotes or whatever, or even connecting them to a therapist or psychiatrist if you suspect there might be mental illness, you can only do so much until it's time for you to say, okay, they have to hit rock bottom, or they have to go through, this is their journey. This is their journey. And once it starts affecting your peace and your joy and your quality of life and your ability to care for others, like your children and yourself, then you have to make that hard choice to say, it's either gonna continue to be me pouring into this person who's not getting it, or I'm gonna make the bigger decision to pour into myself so that I can be a better mother or a better human being, period. So I mean, I'll argue and say I think most women will try to support their man as much as possible before deciding to pull away. And then the last thing I'll say is, because a lot of experienced women who have been married or dated for a long time have done all of that in prior relationships, I think that's why our standards are so high, because we know once we get in that relationship and we make that choice to love, that means that might come with a lot of sacrifices. So we want to make sure that the person we're choosing to commit to is someone that we can truly trust to make good decisions and to give a certain quality of life, so that we're not put back in a situation where we're like carrying us and pouring into that person who's not reciprocating. That's where I think the higher standards come from, because we know as women we're gonna love. You know what I mean? And so I know that was like two different things, but yeah, I argue to say most women will pour and help before deciding to leave. And that trickles down into why our standards are so much higher now, because we know that about ourselves, you know.
And Brittany, I want to talk about those women, the women of like, when I hear my friends talk about their relationships, all the stuff that you said, they don't even talk about that stuff. They don't talk about therapy. They don't talk about prayer. They don't talk about that. They just be like, well, I gave him somewhere to stay. I let him come live with me. And I was like, okay, what did y'all do in the house? Well, he's like, for instance, I had a guy like that, and we had to start waking up, working out every day. I had to figure out what his interests are. And you know what I'm saying? Women are not doing that now these days. They're not putting effort. They're just like, if he's not automatically coming with it, they can care for him. They can love him. They can even, this could be a guy, say they wouldn't connect with a guy for 3 or 4 years. This is the guy that can actually sit down and conversate with for hours. The guy might even love God. You know what I'm saying? And after a certain time, like when I hear about the effort they put in, they're like, well, I call him every day. And I'm like, bitch, what is that? Like, what is calling him every day? Like, what of substance are you doing? That's what I'm saying. Like, some girls, it's just there, and it'd be sad. I be feeling bad for
Mhm.
some. I ain't gonna lie, but I do be feeling bad for the women, because I feel like I was that at some point. Like, I had to understand when is the time to go and when it's time to leave, and I don't feel like you should just sit there and just be quiet, especially the people who don't know how to stick up for themselves. If you know you don't know how to stick up for yourself, get up out of there, because you're not setting boundaries to help that man in the first place. I had to realize a lot of my issues that contributed to my past relationships was due to me not setting boundaries. So when I did get the same type of guy again, I'm like, this time I'm gonna set boundaries and I'm gonna pray and include God. And that changed drastically.
Yeah, I feel you. Love
It's
y'all. I
real
gotta go.
simple.
Have a happy
Yeah, I
Sunday.
feel like by Brittany, I feel like it's sometimes overcomplicated. Um, I feel like I don't feel like women want it all. I think that's a very broad spectrum and very vague statement. I think what women want is to feel safe enough where they can be vulnerable and accomplish whatever the family goal is. So, for instance, everybody's talking about, oh, bring it to the table, the table, the table. First of all, the way I was raised, you should be sitting at his table. It shouldn't be the table. It shouldn't be a meet up in the middle table. It should be a table that he has already fixed for himself. That's just how I was raised. Now, after that, well, can I trust you? Will you be violent towards me? Are you a yeller? Those are types of things that women don't. I'm gone. But I don't have time to raise nobody's child. If you came from a 2-parent home and you're still suffering with, and I need to carry over what your mom taught you, then your mama didn't do her job well. That's just how I feel about that. Because my mom and my dad instilled in me these principles. And these principles, it's not that we need perfection. Women don't want perfection. We just need to feel safe so we can act on whatever it is that he needs us to do. But as long as we feel betrayed, not safe, used, abused, whether it's physically,
Gaslit.
verbally, emotionally, they never gonna get the type of woman that they want, because each woman has it in them. It's up to the man to bring it out. Now, what kind of table women are choosing to sit at, that's on them. That's how they were raised. But after that, after you choose a table and this man's table is a facade and he really a bitch, then you got to get up and go. But you got to know when to go. Was he having a bad day, or is he a narcissist? Because I'm 42. I've been dating a long time, so my radar is good at this point, and so was my bank account. So it's just like, dude, what are we doing here?
I think this is a good discussion as we get ready to close out, man. I probably may have to do a part 2 of this. I did have some more video to continue with it, but I know, it's about that time. But one of the things I do want y'all to kind of consider as we close out is that just because it was our parents that taught us doesn't necessarily mean that it was right. We have to be able to decipher whether the way that our parents taught us, if it is effective and if it's the most logical way. Every situation and circumstance is situational. I like to kind of prepare myself with whatever situation that I find myself in, that I know how to make the right decision. One of the things that I instill in my kids is that not to control them, but being able to make the right decision and understand why that decision is important when they're out there. So same thing with us, right? Can we take what our parents, our mentors, our role models instilled in us, and can we apply it correctly throughout our life? And I think that if you're able to make that decision, then whatever life presents, you won't be afraid to conquer or to endure through. Again, I'm giving variables. Life is up and down. So no matter if life is down, I'm going to make the best decisions that I can make in a moment, not having too much high expectations in the moment, but understanding that this was the best decision. And then even if I inch a little bit towards the other side, even though I'm not there, at least I've made some improvement.
Do you think cheating is down, or is it a deal breaker?
Cheating is down or a deal breaker?
Is that being a down slope? See, that's where it gets slippery for me. When y'all start labeling what is down.
Okay, so when you talk about relationships,
because for me, cheating is you're getting broke up with. I don't deal with that.
Okay,
That's a health hazard.
So, and I've encountered something recently where people make split decisions so quickly, right? And I don't think they really get an understanding as to why a situation happens. So, depending on what it is, right? If you're in a marriage, I think that you should probably try to get a little bit of understanding. I do agree that
divorce.
Well, I do agree that once the foundation is broken, the relationship will never be the same. Can it work? I believe it can work, but then again, I believe it can't work. It just all depends on them people, and you can't really predict what somebody is feeling. But if you have open communication, I think that you can probably get somewhere, but it's going to take both people to be vested in it. So if somebody cheats, have a conversation. I'm not saying every reason is valid, but at least there may be some validity as to why they may have cheated, or maybe it may be something that you might have subconsciously done that you don't even realize that you've done. So at least have a conversation and then make a decision.
Of course, and then you leave. But my thing about it is, in this world,
I'm not saying leaving.
Oh, I'm talking about me. I'm just saying, like, in this world that we live in, it's almost like a lot of, since we on the women thing, it's almost like a lot of men feel like they have that right. And because some women think that way, they expect you to stay after they cheating and keep cheating, having kids outside of marriage. Even in the mass media, all these celebrities getting cheated on, having kids outside the family, and they just staying together for marriage. Like, bro, it's cheaper to keep her. If you're not in a situation that's like that, what are you doing?
Well,
That's
the
all I'm
thing,
saying. Like,
well,
the trust is gone.
okay, so the thing I'm saying is at least have a conversation. At least have a conversation, and then come with your conclusion. Then,
Yeah, so you don't make the mistake again. It's a
It's not
learning
even that. It's
experience.
just Cookie. This is me, and I'm very
Well, I'm
open
gonna say,
about
hold on, Dad. I'm gonna say this because there are some women. I can't really speak on men. Like men are not as forgiving as women are, for whatever reason.
We know.
Yeah. So when there are a lot of women that ignore, they know that 9 times out of 10 that man is cheated, but they overlook it for whatever reason until they get concrete evidence or they're publicly embarrassed. They will overlook
That's the
it.
women that want that. Those are the women that want it all, where they're risking. They'll take whatever he throw at them as long as she living comfortable. That is a woman that want it all.
Well, I won't say it's comfortable. So like some women don't want, once you marry, some women don't want to start over because
lazy.
especially if you got years. I don't think it's lazy, but I mean you got to think about your vows too, and then what you sign up for. I'm not saying that you have to continue to take it, but if it happens and it occurs, I think that you can get through it. I don't think
this
that
is
you
what
have
happened
to.
when you marry for
I don't
for
think
other
that you have to
stuff other
suffer
than
through
love.
it, but at least had a conversation about it, whatever it may be. Had a conversation about it. If a lot of people, because you got to understand, we don't communicate. So a lot of times things get to a certain point because there was bad communication in the first place, and then we wind up in these certain places. I'm not excusing anyone's behavior, whether it be man or woman, but at least you got to have a conversation about it. But if you haven't frequent conversation, understand the importance of communication, then maybe a lot of people won't find themselves in certain situations. But unfortunately, because we don't communicate our wants, our desires, our boundaries, then we find ourselves in these situations where we like, damn, like I didn't see that coming, or damn, this is effed up because we wasn't communicating. Like imagine a relationship where people don't take things personally and you're able to tell exactly how you feel. There's also a little bit of understanding, and there are also people wanting to make that person happy. If you got all these things working on all cylinders, then I think you have a healthy relationship. But usually the communication is a big component that's missing in a lot of relationships, and not just romantic, family, friendships, work. People don't know how to listen and communicate appropriate. There are layers to communication. And until we understand that, you're going to find yourselves a lot of people being selfish in every moment that they encounter, and then we don't get to the other side of growth. People are so selfish that they don't want to have kids. People are so selfish that they don't want to have to factor in nobody else's feelings but theirs when it comes to living life until they get old and die. I believe a lot of people desire companionship on the front end, but I think based off their experiences, which 9 times out of 10 have been negative, then they find themselves not wanting to deal with anybody because they have complete control over the input and the output when you don't involve anybody else. That's the easier way. Most people are lazy when it comes to relationships because they don't want to have to factor in anybody else. That's just the way it is. Think about
It's not
consistency.
even laziness. They be
A lot of
hurt,
people
Lapeef. It has to do with pain. A lot of people have
pain,
not gotten
hurt,
over the
whatever you want to look
previous
at it.
pain.
People,
They
right?
can't even
That's what I'm
forget
saying.
that it happened.
So that's the real reason why people say get together younger, because then you don't have to get with somebody that have all these experiences, because now you got to factor all that in. You don't know what you're gonna get. If somebody is 40 years old and they've been actively dating, then they have encountered a lot of bad experiences. That's the reason why they are 9 times out of single. I'm talking somebody that's active. If you got somebody that's just been in a that's just been inside the house, ain't went out, ain't dated nobody, ain't did nothing, then they're not gonna have that bad experience. But if you've been actually been in relationship, that's a bad experience. Like who wants to have to go through that? Now you have so many comparisons, so many expectations, so much disappointment. I've been married twice, like divorced twice. It's just so much to factor in, and a lot of people don't know how to deal with that. A lot of people don't have to deal with that. So it's just so many.
Is it okay? So is it they don't know how to deal with it, or some people just choose not to? And isn't that their right?
No, I'm not saying it's not their right, but I'm just saying if you look at the bigger picture, all of this stuff makes sense. If you are single and you've been actively dating, you got to understand that when you get into a relationship and somebody's of that same age and been actively dating, then this is the outcome that it could be. There are potential things to happen. So if you understand that, you won't have these high expectations because you understand this person has been actively dating the same way I have, and now that I have a general understanding, when we come to a where we can't agree, then we can work through it easily because I understand that this person has been through, let's say, 20 years of up and down relationships, same way like I have.
Well, yeah, of course,
Right,
but
right. But people are not realistic about that. So that's why they have these that's why they say unrealistic expectations. They still expect for this person to be exactly how I want them to be. And then when they're not, then
well,
I'm
no,
on
I
to
think I
the
don't
next.
think it's that, JR. I think after or at that big age, you expect people to be like,
Deal with it
cheating
how
get
you
you
deal with it.
dumped.
Like there's certain
Nigga,
things
like
that
what
they
are
should
we?
have.
Yeah, like you should know this already. Why are we
There's
still
some things
playing?
that are right. There's
But
some
they
things that are
don't know
not.
people. I mean, people don't even know that people are not self-aware about themselves. Like it's a given that people, like, everybody's not gonna have it all figured out. People are not consistent. People are going to have a hard time losing weight. People are going to have bad relationships with their family and their kids. People are lazy. Like, these variables exist. Like, you can't
Yeah,
change
I
that.
get it. It's
So
just sad.
and it is. But imagine a world where all of us are the same. You wouldn't have coaches. You wouldn't have dating coaches. You wouldn't have counselors. You wouldn't have therapists because everybody would be the same. But
Maybe the dating culture thing without that would not be so bad. The way our culture is right now, it's fucked. But
yeah.
I'm sorry,
Right.
it's cool
So
day.
think about if we all was the same, we wouldn't have role models. We wouldn't have inspirations. We wouldn't have um something to look forward to because we would all be the same. So I respect the fact that we are all different. Some
No,
people
and
think,
I get
yeah.
that.
Some
All I'm
people don't get
saying
it.
is that at a
It's just,
certain
and my
point,
advice gonna be different too because of my age. You got to remember that. So for
eh,
me, with us younger, dating younger, with the guys that's in their 20s and in their early 30s, it's like they're just now coming into, okay, why am I making these mistakes? Like, I notice a guy with too much time on his hands might cheat more than a guy who's always working. Or
right?
and if they have these habits from when they were younger, like, we had to look up dopamine. Like, my guy ended up getting so much until he wanted to figure out why he was cheating so bad after I started sounding boundaries. He's like, bro, did you know the body produces a hormone called dopamine? Do you know every time that if you overproduce your brain with dopamine, that once I'm at this stage, then I feel like, and do you know sex produces this? And do you know I don't have to go to sex to get that hormone fulfilled? Now I can go outside more. I can see the sun more. Guys really don't know this about themselves. Just the basic human anatomy
At
of
your age,
themselves.
they don't, baby. Like I said, I'm 42.
Yeah, that's
He
true. That's
knew
true.
he chose
That's true.
violence, and at a certain age, there's just
I get what you're
and
saying.
it's nothing wrong with it. It's just certain things that um
Well,
grown
what
women are
about
not
age?
putting up
Age
with.
doesn't always bring knowledge. So just because he got older, don't mean he
Well,
got the
I can't
knowledge he
speak
was
for
supposed to get
everybody.
at
I'm just
30.
saying,
Yeah, that's
like,
true.
it should. It should bring wisdom from actions and failure. We've all been living through life. You got through this life some type of way. You done failed at something. You put your coffee table in the wrong place. You keep stubbing your toe. You move the coffee table. You know what I'm saying? You
I really
cheated
can't
on this
argue
girl. You
about
cheated on that girl. You cheated on this guy. You cheated on that guy. Stop fucking cheating. You know what I'm saying?
But if they
Like,
don't know
we
why they're
know right
cheating,
from wrong
why
from
guys
little.
cheat
That's
is
what I'm
different than
saying.
why
And they
women
sound like a
cheat.
bunch of
So,
fucking excuses to me. I'm sorry.
but the reason why guys cheat and what initiates them is different than women. And that's why I say women want guys to be women so bad. They're not women, they're men. So, in
No.
order to help that man, you have to literally put yourself in his shoes without any. I feel like it's easier to, and this is just me just helping different relationship people. My friend would say one thing to her husband, and because she's the one saying it, it's unable for him to receive it. Then I would come in and say it because I'm not as offended as her. I don't have much emotion behind what I'm saying. And now he's able to process it. When guys feel that you're upset about something, especially if he cares about you, when you saying something to me, he like, you're bashing me, you're bashing me. No, you're just offended because you want to make me happy. You feel like me giving you some type of feedback let you down. So no, now you can't hear me. There's, like he said, there's different variables that's contributing to why whatever you may have done or the other person may have done that may not be getting through to him.
And all I'm saying is, even though the pond is skinny in that variable, I do not deal with people that have those issues.
True.
That's all I'm saying. They haven't worked through that.
Because it's a
I'm like,
red flag
that is called a red flag. Yes.
But could
That's
we
Because you
all
called
like,
a
I'm 42. No, I'm not gonna lie. If I was 42 and you still don't understand those simple aspects of, and even if you know you're gonna cheat, why get in a relationship? That's when you should
Thank
have told me
you.
to
Just
stay
let me
single.
know.
Let's
I'll be the
continuously openly
girlfriend.
date. Let's
Whatever.
have a So I agree with you. If you can't even communicate by that age and you feel like you got to manipulate me into a relationship, knowing you're still dealing with these issues, now I'm kind of worried.
Yeah,
But
you've been alive too long for that.
we could
Yeah.
collectively agree that both men and women act accordingly, and they act in very healthy ways when they like the person that they're dating or pursuing. All of the variables that we talk about, it's not even an issue when you're dating someone that you like and the person likes you back. When it's reciprocal, you don't have any of this. All of this is not even talked about.
It's imaginary.
Right. And even the person that has,
I think it depends on
issues,
your childhood.
even the person that has issues, you'd be surprised what a person's willing to do when they really come across someone they really like. Suddenly them working on that issue is a priority and they truly want to work on it. All of a sudden they want to be the better versions of themselves, both men and women, not just one or the other. And I'm like, oh wow, I've gone through it. But so all the variables that we talk about, a woman wants too much, a man wants too much, none of that is ever a topic of conversation when it's two people who are pursuing each other and it's reciprocal.
I don't have that problem right now. That's what I'm saying.
All of a sudden it's you have two compromising individuals, two healthy individuals. Communication isn't an issue. Respect is not an issue. The woulda, coulda, shoulda, maybe, none of that is even a question.
And the reason why I feel like sometimes that's unrealistic, if you look at our community, where we come from, just the history of Black people in general, and this is not, I know that I'm gonna be in a place to where I'm surrounding myself with people who don't have these issues, but I always try to give advice for the people that I'm surrounded by, because I'm starting to, those audiences trying to come in. A lot of us ain't always healthy. Like, you know what I'm saying? I wasn't healthy. I thought I was just because I had good intentions. You know what I'm saying? But then when I got to understand a woman's role in a marriage, I'm like, damn, I thought I was doing something. I really wasn't doing shit. You know what I'm saying? So I don't feel like it's
all
always,
we were saying. At a certain age, you know.
Well,
you
I don't know, because my
out.
dad still don't know. My dad still don't know. I don't know. That's what I'm saying. People just be thinking that maturity comes with age, and it don't. Intelligence don't come with age. It's sad to say. It's sad to say.
All right, y'all. Well, it's been an interesting discussion, man. Let me see if I got some super chats real quick and we get up out of here. Coca Fat Olive says a lot of us grew up with 8 siblings, 4 boys, 4 girls, and a mama had a different way of talking to each other. Daddy was working. Stanley Fat Olive says a barren woman is valueless to a man who does want children. Kelvin Cook Fat Olive says, imagine being a side chick for 5 years and catch feelings one day. You think they're going to leave their wife. Nope. Now you are a wicked homewrecker. Stanley, $2 says, if you did get it, all could help keep it. And lastly, Kelvin Cook, $2 says, if a stud leave you, something is wrong with you. So I want to thank everybody that has contributed to the platform. I want to thank Closet Baddie, Allie, Brittany Gold, Simone, Kim, One Country Cookie. I want to thank myself as well, man, for having an awesome discussion. Thank everybody in the chat, even the people that did not participate in the chat. And even if you catch it on the replay, man, make sure you hit the like button. Also, make sure you subscribe to the channel. Catch us next Sunday.